Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the I'm Not a GM Speed Chess Championship. Grandmaster Robert Hess alongside me today. Once again, Grandmaster Amon Hamilton. Amon, we have a great matchup in store today, don't we?
Yeah, what's up, Robert? What's up, everybody? We are about to get into an exciting matchup, which is going to be International Master Levy Rozman against National Master James Canty. And I'm very excited to call this one with you, Robert.
Me too. These are two very popular chess content creators. And before we get into the specifics of those two, let's talk about the format overall, just to remind everybody what they are tuning in for, because it's a knockout tournament. There will be 75 minutes of the longest time control, a 5-minute plus 1 second increment blitz, 45 minutes of 3-minute plus 1 second blitz, and then finally the 25 minutes of bullet chess. And there are those breaks in between. We saw those last time. They can come in handy for players to stop the bleeding if they've lost a couple of games in a row, and also just to refresh and for our viewers to take a step back and enjoy the chess. But Amon, the prize fund, as we see here, still the same as it in the round of 16. We have a $500 per match. Pretty good prize money for a couple hours of blitz, right?
Yeah, not bad at all. I think it's nice that basically if you are participating in the I Am Not a GM tournament, you are getting paid something no matter what, and it only gets better from there.
For sure. And it's by win percentage, half of that prize fund. So there's always something to play for, even to the very last game, no matter what the score of the match is. And speaking of score matches, let's take a peek at the overall bracket. Last time we were together, Amon, we saw Lawrence Trent take down Danny Wrench. And this time we have the lower left side of the bracket, the 4-seed Levy Rozman, that's Gotham Chess, taking on James Canty III. So it's an international master versus national master matchup down there in the bottom left. So why don't we start making predictions? What are your thoughts, Amon, about this match that we're going to see today?
Well, a few things have to be said going into this match, Robert. We can't forget that Levy is definitely the favorite going in, but he might not be as much of a favorite as people think. So James Canty, I think one of the most kind of remarkable things that I didn't really know about him is that we checked his bullet rating, and I think he was actually higher than some of the international masters we commentated the last matchup. Lawrence Trent, Danny Wrench, like, this guy's no joke in bullet. He's actually rocking like a mid 2600 bullet rating, which is extremely impressive. So James Canty in the bullet section, beware.
I'm with you because I think that's the time control where you often see the stronger player or the player who's just much more accustomed to playing online. They thrive in that quickest time control. But James Canty III, no slouch in the bullet portion, and he's ready to take on Levy. And Levy was in a slump. We saw him tweet about that, saying he's finally out of it. He took down a grandmaster in a bunch of blitz games. He's feeling much more confident, and he's breathing a sigh of relief that that bad form, hopefully for him, is a thing of the past. But Amon, I mean, it is interesting because Levy has to be the favorite, right? He is much higher rated. He has the higher title. But how do you kind of put that aside when you're playing a head-to-head match for so long? Because let's say James wins the first game. Now, all of a sudden, are you really still the favorite? The answer is yes, objectively, right? Statistically speaking. But how do you kind of quell the nerves in a match like this?
Well, yeah, you just always refer to the betting lines, Robert. Always tell yourself in the head, I'm still the betting favorite. if you're Levy, that'll calm you right down. But no, the thing is, if you get behind in a match like this, you really have to have those cool nerves. I think that being a streamer, sometimes it means you have more turbulent emotions, but I think it can also help keep those emotions in check because you're streaming for a large audience. Some things might not go your way while you're streaming. You have to maintain that entertainer face and keep it cool. So I think he probably has a lot of experience in that department, so it could actually help him in this match today.
Absolutely. And well, it's a natural segue when you're talking about streaming for hours and trying to keep your composure. Arena King Season 6 did start on Monday. We have another event this coming Friday here, and it's always a lot of fun. A couple hours of blitz chess. There's going to be some chess 960 in addition to classical, well, standard chess. That's not classical time control. But Arena King Season 6 is already underway. And Amon, we have a pretty huge announcement that was made just the other day, and that is that PogChamps 3 is happening. As we see two of the biggest streamers on the planet, XQC and Ludwig, return for Season 3 of PogChamps. And of course, we have an online chess first, as Code Miko joins the field as the first VTuber in a tournament hosted by Chess.com. So Amon, you see that graphic there. You pretty pumped for another Pog Champs?
I like watching these kind of events where you've got the lower rated players getting into chess, being coached by the studs of our chess community here, and bringing a lot more eyes to the chess directory, Robert. So good thing all around. I'm glad Chess.com brought it back.
Absolutely. It's going to be another fun edition of PogChamp. Some new faces will join the fold, and it should be another great event, highly entertaining. And I just love the graphics on this, by the way. And I know that
Yeah,
there's a lot of hard work put into it, but I just find it really cool with kind of the backdrop behind the players, and of course the Ludwig salute.
yeah. Shout out to the graphic team.
Oh, well, we do have just a couple minutes now before the match gets started. If you're on the go, do download the app so you can watch all the games as they happen before your eyes. You will not want to miss this one, as well, we two of our favorite content creators, James Canty III, that's GM Canty. And I think we need to have a word with him, Aman, because that is explicitly not allowed in this tournament. GM Canty. There are no GMs in this field. So should
Yeah,
we have
one
to
sec.
revoke his invitation?
Listen, I didn't realize that the GMs could sneak in like that. And with the prizes that are at stake here, Robert, I might have to go for a username change one of these days.
So you're gonna go on by Aman. I am Aman. You know, I'm trying to figure out how I can do that. Just change the A in your first name to Iman, right?
Yeah, I might just add it onto KNVB. I am KNVB.
So
More
it'll show up
letters.
as I am GM KNVB. I think that works well. Well, we see the players seated. Levy,
There
as
they
per
are.
usual, in a hoodie, and I love James's hat. Like the fact that it just says that's not a move, and nobody has that kind of quick banter talk like James Canty when it comes to talking about chess. It's just so fun.
Yeah, if you've never heard that expression, it's very much a chessism, where you're just playing a quick blitz game. Some guy does something that looks pretty sketchy. You're pretty sure it's not a good move, and immediately you look at it, you're like, that's not a move. What are you talking about, buddy? So yeah, very much a GM Canty hat right there. So I agree. I like the swag.
For sure. And well, I see many people in the chat talking about Levy and who they're putting their money on. And well, let's talk about how big of a favorite we think that Levy is in this match, because he is the higher rated of the two by quite a margin in bullet. We talked about how Canty is a strong bullet player, but Levy's bullet rating is something in the 2800s. So that's quite a force.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot higher than Canty's rating in most categories, but I think in bullet the difference in the rating is probably a bit less significant. It's really hard to judge, but I think that Canty definitely has his chances. When you're 2600 plus in bullet, you can take down 2800s. Like that's not out of your ballpark. So definitely look for the bullet section in this match to be quite important. And if the match is anywhere around even or maybe a few games lead in either direction going into the bullet, then I think that could be a deciding factor. But Levy's going to look to get out to just a clean, good start. We already talked about, hey, what happens if maybe he doesn't have the best start? How's he going to recover? I think the simplest answer is, just don't lose, right? Just get off to a good start. You don't have to worry about that. So he's probably looking to get out of the gate with a comfortable lead and never look back.
Yeah, for sure. And Levy has some huge victories under his belt in Title Tuesdays past. I remember he beat Peter Svidler at some point. So it's clear that he can punch up. And it is difficult, I would say, psychologically when you feel that pressure, that burden of being the stronger player, the higher rated player, because then you start putting pressure on yourself to win. And you can't be like that in the game of chess. You need to be as objective as possible, because if you start thinking in results oriented terms, you're not really putting out your best game. So I think that Levy just needs to go in this with a very clear slate. Just say, I'm playing a strong player. Let's do this. And if he does put out his best chess, he should be the favorite for sure.
Yeah, and let's not understate, like, being the favorite going into a match. That means James Canty. I mean, he's got nothing to lose. No one is sitting there, expecting him to come in and crush Levy. That's not the expectation. So he's got nothing to lose. He's coming in here with a head of steam. And for myself, Robert, I don't really like being a heavy favorite when I come into a match. I don't know. It kind of psychs me out. I'd rather be on like equal playing field or even be the underdog. So Levy's got to deal with that. However he does.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially as these players know so many people are watching. They're used to it, as you pointed out, Amon, because they are big
Yeah.
streamers at this point. Especially Levy, his Gotham chess channels are just soaring these days. But then with all the eyeballs comes expectation, comes pressure, and that could play a part. But he does look pretty chill right now. He's
He
just
does.
waiting for the games to begin, and well, Canty as always, he's just hanging in
He's just vibing. He's just vibing.
there.
Speaking of games beginning, you called it, Robert, and off we go.
And we don't have a London system. So for a second, I thought we'd get a London from Levy with an early bishop f4, but instead we're getting a King's Indian. So fighting chess is definitely on the table here in game one.
Yeah, the London is something that basically Levy, a guy like Levy, or anyone that competes in these type of events, is always going to have in reserve. It's like, hey, if things start going poorly, I always have this, trusty opening that I can rely on for a decent position. But let me try some more classical approaches here. We see just a normal D4 game into a King's Indian, and already this somewhat crazy looking G4 move, Robert. Can you explain this one to people who might think that Levy's gone mad and starting to go king hunting early on?
Well, this move G4 is preemptive. It's trying to anticipate black moving the knight away and playing pawn to f5, but it also has the benefit of playing h4, g5, h5, and storming your pawns down the board and creating attack of your own. But I think the major issue as a standard is when there's a king in the center, that king often is more vulnerable than a king sitting on g8 with a fianchetto structure around it. So I mean, Amon, this bishop f3 move also caught me a bit off guard. I thought they usually put the pawn on f3, but it seems like
Right.
Levy's marching forward here for the attack.
Yeah, it also seems like he kind of has a plan or setup in mind that he's trying to go for. I guess I wouldn't be surprised now that the bishop's on f3 if this knight maybe found itself going to g3. The nice thing about not playing the pawn to f3 and first moving the pawn is that black doesn't ever have access to the h5 square.
Right.
So sometimes when the pawn's on f3, you plant that knight on h5, and sometimes you even come into f4. White never wants to give away the bishop for the knight like that. And the way that he's done it, there's no knight h5, so that knight's going to have to probably go backwards, Robert, and then we might see your plan h4, h5, opening up that h file.
Yeah, and the fact that James is thinking, I was about to say, I think he might be considering knight h5, even though it's a pawn sacrifice. If the queen ends up on h5, the d3 square becomes available to that knight on c5. So you can't just go ahead and grab a pawn, even if it looks free. You have to think of the consequences a few moves down the line. So Levy first takes the knight on c5. Now I think he takes the other knight. So we get a situation, Amon, two bishops, but the two knights have an extra pawn, and those bishops don't exactly have open space. I feel like white has to objectively be better, but it could be difficult if suddenly James opens the position up with a timely b5 or something like that.
Yeah, I'm waiting for f5 to appear on the board in this position. Basically, if the g pawn takes, maybe the queen takes, and all of a sudden we have that immediate activity, and there's f5 on the board. It is that typical looking move that you want to play when you have those bishops. Bishops thrive in open positions, and as Robert mentioned, moves like b5, moves like f5, they challenge the pawn chain, and even at the cost of potentially another pawn, just opening the position up. I mean, Levy's king is, it doesn't have a lot of defenders very close to him, so this could actually work out for James, but it's going to be an exciting game either way with two bishops against two knights.
Yeah, it seems like white should have the quicker attack because you stole a pawn that was in front of black's king. But if you castle queenside for white, then queen a5 happens. And even if there's nothing concretely there, it just feels like a position where very quickly black is picking up steam. And often that's what you need in a blitz game, just to concern your opponent. Even if there's nothing specifically that is so dangerous, it's like that threat is stronger than the execution, the very popular chess quote. So I think that holds true in a position like this.
Definitely. And he's gone for f3, so just looking to maintain the center.
Yeah, and I saw the eval bar take a huge dip there. So there's something about that move that there's a drawback to it. And I'm wondering if just opening up the F file to begin with makes sense, because that makes your rook on f8 more powerful. Perhaps you can play on both sides of the board with that rook coming to f2, for instance. It just feels like a situation where white needs to tread carefully.
Yeah, in terms of concrete lines, I was even looking at takes, rook f4, intending bishop g4.
Ooh.
and it kind of looks like maybe just for a brief moment you could stop Levy's king from getting to the queen side, which is exactly, I was going to say, where he's going to go right now.
Yeah, so Levy quickly runs that king over, and now queen b4 comes to mind. Can I just pick off your c4 pawn with my queen? Because, and that's what's played, white doesn't have many defenders over by his king. So is black going to have the attack here? Is white somehow going to press forward?
I think they both are going to have the attack here, Robert.
It's just one of these annoying positions where if white ever plays g6, you play h6. And it's like, wait, I should have something. I have a pawn on g6. Your king is there, but that pawn on h6 just closes down the entire king side.
Absolutely. Yeah, g6, h6, and there's no g file for you to play on. It's not that easy to break through. Whereas for black, I don't know what the evaluation of this might be, but at least you kind of know what you're up to. You know, you've got b5 coming in. You're already hitting this pawn. Knight e2 by Levy. This is sort of what I expected. He needs to finish his development, and we might see ideas like king b1 is a common move, knight g3, trying to get into g5, but b5, b4 by black is coming sooner than you'd like to see it.
What about rook hg1, rook g3, rook h3? Do I have time for that? Probably not, but I just don't see how I attack, and it's a position where it feels like white has to go and attack the black king, but that feels very slow, and black can always move the f pawn, because if that f pawn goes, you no longer have access to the h3 square as the bishop on c8 cuts down the diagonal.
Yeah, in fact, you could even be worse. You could wait for the guy to go rook g3 and then play f4 and just cover the square from there.
Yeah, I really feel like from a psychological point of view, it's easier to play as black here. I mean, even a move like pawn takes c6 has the drawback of after b takes c6, the b file opens up. So you ruin black's pawn structure, but that opening of another file where your king is, that seems very dangerous.
Yep. I think there's probably a way to play where you maybe just take on c6 and just double the rooks on the d file and sort of just play chess from there. You know, you're covering b2 that way. The knight's always watching a2, and I don't see a way that this bishop on g7 can enter the game. Like if that pawn on e5 almost disappears, like if it wasn't there, or if it ever moves in this game, white has to be very, very careful. Queen h4 played, and that eval bar takes another hit. I think the previous move, white was apparently doing well according to the engine, but you and I, Robert, we're looking at this position and kind of reminding people that, hey, it might look like an advantage for white, but you know, black's attacking ideas seem to be easier to execute than white's. And I think that's what maybe Levy's is kind of realizing here, is the time advantage is also quite significant.
Yeah, I mean, even in this position, it's actually difficult for black as well, because I'm looking at this position, I'm thinking pawn takes e4. I'm thinking pawn takes d5. I think, do I leave the tension as it currently exists? I think I would take on d5 because I have the bishops. I want to open up the board, but I can see the drawback of that. He does take on d5 because if the d file can be under white's control, that could be a problem for black. But I'm starting to like James' position more and more.
Yeah, and not that this was ever his intention, but with the queen on h4, he can't take with the e-pawn. There was a pin there. And after queen a6, I think his intention was to meet this move with b3 and knight takes d5, but maybe he's noticing after queen a6, like taking that pawn is actually not so good. He gets a knight e7 check, maybe king h8, g6, but that move h6 kind of always saves the day.
Yeah, and the knight on e2 is also hanging out. Maybe taking on a2 is better, honestly, because you're closer to the white king, but the knight on e2 is hanging in that variation if the knight moves from c3. So maybe there's some kind of knight d5, knight e7, knight g6 check, like just a back and forth of a repetition if the king goes to h8, but maybe that king goes to f7, and now you've...
I think so.
And look at that bar. Takes a dip again, h6 has to be the response, right? Just simply
and I think he's trying to be tricky, because sometimes when you're intending these long calculations and then you see like some line where, oh, my pawn would be better if it was on g6, you start with that move. And then your opponent might not expect that you're just sort of slowly, subtly inserting that into a long calculation.
Right. And yeah, that's a good point, because, for example, h takes g6 now. Oh, he does it. I was thinking knight takes d5 becomes more powerful in many of these variations because you no longer have access to the h file. So knight e7 check could be devastating. But the problem with knight d5 is we're talking about the a2 pawn, the knight on e2 both hang. And rook g1 doesn't actually threaten anything just yet. The pawn on g6 is defended by the queen. But of course, we see the potential here of a knight coming to d5, a rook taking on g6, the knight e7 check. There are many ideas for Levy.
As we like to say in chess, it threatens to threaten.
Precisely that.
One of the scariest things. And if d4, which as you pointed out earlier, kind of wins, quote unquote, wins that knight, I think that's what Levy's actually intending, to give up that knight, play rook takes g6, get that other rook over. Suddenly he's the one on the offensive. So if Canty gets too greedy here, this could flip completely in Levy's favor. So don't be too worried. If you're a Levy fan looking at that eval minus 2.5, oh, this game's over. Not at all. This game could just go topsy-turvy when everyone's attacking.
And we're getting a bullet scramble because the players are now down under 30 seconds per side. The g6 pawn feels weak. Black is up 2 pawns. I would consider playing, he plays d4. I was considering pawn takes e4, f takes, and just trying to open the position up for that rook on f8, but he goes this way.
I don't like this. I feel like Levy's getting what he wants. That's the point of rook there. With time ticking down, this is not it. Nope.
No, this can't be it. I mean, you see the evaluation bar go up very high in White's favor. Rook takes g6. Threatens rook g1 or even rook takes g7, sacrifices for a quick mate. This has to be winning for White. Oh.
Okay, so he wants to slide the rook over first, which I just don't think it can be the right way to go, but I see what he's trying to do.
And he takes on g6. Oh, how do you do this? Queen f1 check is just met by king b2, for example. The king runs away. So how do you actually get out of this?
But the thing is, what's the actual threat? Because rook takes g7, there's no rook g2 to follow up.
Oh, that's a good point. So
like that's why the rook was better on d1, which is why Canty's actually hooped himself by checking. That was the wrong thing to do. 2.6 seconds. Levy's going to get that win, but I think rook d2 was actually the mistake. And then Canty said, hey, hang on, let me fix that rook for you, and didn't realize he was doing that. And Levy's attack pays off in game 1, Robert. 1-0 for Levy.
Yeah, we should pull up an analysis board real quick because that's a very instructive moment that you're pointing out, that the rook needed access to the G file to make it work. So, Amon, if you could pull up the last game, that was just so instructive there. And that's why rook d2 was actually a bad move and rook takes g6 was so strong.
Yeah, if you start with rook takes g6, then basically the threat is you're going to take this, you're going to bring the rook over, give another check. So if I just make a move for black, we'll show what white is threatening. Something like this, check, and leading to checkmate on e7. Exactly. So you need to have the G file accessible. And in the game, what we actually saw was rook d2, and then rook g6, and now that's not a threat because g2 is covered.
Yep. So it's a slower approach, and that's all the time Black would have needed to try to save the king. It was very difficult. You're under duress on the clock, on the board. James actually didn't even seem like he realized he was in time trouble, and that can be something that players fall victim to in these 5-minute portions because they're not used to having so much time, and they think that they have all the time in the world, and the next thing you know, your clock has fallen.
Absolutely. And both of these players in that time scramble didn't look the most comfortable, but I'll give credit to Levy there because he was like 20 seconds to about a minute and a half or something. I think he was really down on time, and he clawed all the way back in order to get that win on time. So very impressive speed and accuracy at the same time by Levy.
For sure. And has Levy been taking lessons from Yasser Seirawan because he's playing the black side of a Caro-Kann, and it was the Panov variation, which is why white is currently up a pawn, but they're doubled on the D file there. And a typical idea for black is to go knight c7, try to win the pawn back, but you have to consider things like, hey, does bishop c4 that just played, does that save the pawn?
I mean, you're talking about lessons from Yasser. I was like, wait a minute, he's down a pawn. Yasser would never touch this position.
I've actually played Yasser from the white side of this position. So, he doesn't mind sacrificing a pawn if it gives him all this quick play, and it's in his beloved Caro-Kann where they're all pawns, no hope.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. And like queen takes a2 is the move that's sort of being indicated and queen a2 is played. Keeping a watch on that pawn, I wouldn't be surprised if like b5 was maybe a move here. I'm not too familiar with the theory in this position, Robert, but tons of pressure here and b5 played.
Yeah, and I think the problem here is knight takes b5 actually drops a piece for white because there's queen a5 check at the end of the line. So b5 is tactically sound.
Yep. And I guess you could take on b5 with the bishop, but we basically looking at that position after like bishop a6, white is not going to have any hopes to castle, and the price of a pawn is pretty much not worth it.
Definitely not. And this is what happens sometimes when you sort of you win a pawn, you try to protect it, and you're a little bit too focused on the material. And it makes sense because in many of these Caro-Kann lines from the white side and the Panov, you do try to protect that pawn, but here you're seeing how James had to allow Levy's pawns forward. But the downside of these pawn pushes, right, Amon, is that this pawn on b5 could become a weakness as the game continues.
Yeah. Out of the opening, I think Levy's got to be super happy with how it's gone. But I'll just give credit to Canty, although he may have ran into someone else's prep. He might not have the best opening. He's kept the time even. In fact, he's ahead on the clock. And sometimes when you get in these bad opening positions, at least I can speak for myself here, Robert, I overthink them. You start to worry that your opponent has just got the whole game prepped, and you get low on time plus the bad position. So whenever you're in a tough position, play quick and at least give yourself a chance on the clock.
Yeah, low on time is something I'm very accustomed to. So I feel that you're right that oftentimes in blitz, the best thing you can do is play decent or good moves quickly rather than trying to find the perfect move every single time. And look at James. He's built up a large lead on the clock. Still plenty of time, of course, for Levy. His knight on d5 looks very strong. The pawn on c3 is a target, but it's what I was saying. You'd rather, for black, have your pawns on a7 and b6 in this position instead of on b5 where it's very vulnerable, and if b5 is captured, then a4 is a target next.
And I think black has sort of lost a bit of the pull in the last couple of moves. Like after pawn takes here, I would be a little bit more attracted to maybe the move bishop e6 and leaving that knight on c7 guarding the pawn. I feel like after knight d5, bishop d2, you pointed out earlier that that pawn might be a liability. And I'm just wondering, like very, very quickly, the pieces can all shift over to the b file. You've got the easy e file access here. And I'm not so sure how easy it is to defend that pawn, like bishop a6 and bishop d7. Both don't look like moves that either are playable or that you want to play.
Totally with you. And if, especially in view of, well, bishop d7, I guess not possible because the knight on d5 is hanging right now, but that makes matters even worse. So maybe bishop e6, tactically protecting b5 because of some discoveries, but then you're inviting the queen over to b2 where you put another attacker on b5.
Right.
It feels like an awkward position.
Yeah, I think the queen is going to slide to b2, and then we might see rook b8, something like that. But I don't think you can complain too much if you're Canty here. Something like rook e1, maybe knight to g5, or trying to get the knight to e5 eventually. There is this weak c pawn to target, but it almost feels like Levy doesn't quite have time to fully exert all the pressure on the c file because he's got his own pawn to worry about.
Absolutely. And in addition to going after a backwards pawn, which the pawn c3 is, you might want to blockade it by putting a piece in c4, but you just don't have time to get your knight to b6. And it's what? Whoa.
Well, seems a little unnecessary, I guess is the best word that I can use to describe it. C4, eh?
Because if knight b6, then d5.
Yeah, absolutely. Knight there, d5. Seems like you're handling things. He's gone for it. There's the rook's loose. This bishop is loose. There's a lot of things going on here.
But what you said earlier, Amon, look at the clock situation. James, even if this may be a dubious or potentially a sacrifice of a backfire, he's moving very quickly, and that's putting a lot of pressure on Levy on the clock.
And definitely the eval bar was sort of in Levy's favor there because of bishop takes a1. The computer is always going to just grab that material, Robert, and take it right to the bank and say, yeah, no worries, we win these. But a human is going to look at that and be like, wait a minute, like I can't give away my dark square bishop like that. White plays queen takes a1, bishop h6. He already gets the piece back, or the exchange back.
It looks like a Grunfeld type of position, right? Where you give up the rook on a1 and then go checkmate the king on the king side, because that fianchetto bishop is so important to a defense on the king side, right? When you fianchetto, the h6 square and the dark squares become vulnerable if that bishop disappears. So I think you can just go ahead and take the pawn on b5. If you were willing to give up your rook on a1 once, I think you should be willing to give it up now.
Yep. And I think James has got the right strategy to have a chance in this match, Robert, because what he's doing is he's basically playing fast enough that he's been up on time every game, and he's saying, look, we all know how impressive Levy can be in time scrambles, so just you're gonna have to show me every time. Like you're gonna have to consistently perform the way that he did in game one, and it's not going to happen every game. There's going to be a few games where Levy's going to maybe make some blunders in time pressure, and James has got to capitalize when that moment happens.
Absolutely. But right now, I see the eval bar dip a bit, and I can understand why. Because In this position, black can take on c4, take on f3, and at the end of it all, white is going to have to play g2, takes f3, and the kingside pawn structure is shattered. And that's not what James wanted here. So it's interesting he spent 1 minute and 5 seconds and then said, I'm going to shy away from the exchange sacrifice. I need to keep my material. So it feels like he had the right plan, and then he went away from it because something spooked him.
And I'm not that much of a hater on this position. Like, let's say everything takes. Take here, you take with a G pawn, your bishop goes to B4, guards your weak pawn, hits E7. You got your rook exactly where it needs to be on D1. And you sort of play king G2, queen E4, rook E1. I can really get behind this position for white, actually. And he started with bishop B4. Interesting.
Oh, I like that move because now you're at least keeping it tactical. And the pawn on D5 should not be captured. I think that would be, it has to be bad, right? Some kind of just queen takes c4 even. There's pins. The bishop on g4 is under attack, in addition to the knight on d5 being under attack. So Levy has a lot to calculate. He's now down to 20 seconds, and he plays c3. That's a brave move.
Yeah, in the face of, as you mentioned, a lot of tactics. There's h3, I was going to say, which I think he might whip out here. If takes, he wants to play d6, and suddenly it's the rook on a8 that's actually hanging to white's bishop.
And of course, if you get the bishop pair and then the open e file, you put a rook on e1. And well, that pawn on c3, it is a passed pawn, but it's easy to blockade for the moment. You can just put your queen on c2 and stop that pawn's progress, but not a move. You want to play d6 and 5 seconds for Levy.
Oh. Yeah, takes queen c7, I think has to be the way to go.
But then there's rook c6 and your rook on f8 hanging.
Rook c6, the bishop on f3.
Yeah,
well, take that for sure. You got to just grab that with the rook.
What's he?
He was thinking of bishop takes.
Okay, queen c7, rook c6 has to be good.
Yep. And this pawn on c3 is going to be strong, but that is material.
It is, but that dark square bishop will help. Your light square bishop will help blockade the pawn. So take on g7.
Takes g7.
Yeah, take on g7. You go up a piece.
You blundered.
Yeah.
And the two bishops should win this game. And I was mentioning that's the strategy for Canty. You got to try to use the pressure of the clock. And with 1.8 seconds, this is looking tough. You only get 1 extra second per move, not 2.
Yeah, and you saw Levy's face when he allowed bishop takes g7. He's just like, oh, and that's what happens when you're in time trouble more than anything. Of course, James played a very nice tactical game, but Levy didn't have the time he needed to work through this. Rook takes c3, get rid of that pass pawn, you're up a full piece. I think Levy will throw in the towel. Oh, he doesn't quite yet.
This is looking really tough. The bishop controls this. Like basically, you could put a black bishop somewhere on the board, and white would probably still be better.
Yeah, queen takes d7. That's another free piece. And interesting that he's playing on. Do you think he's just trying to waste more time as we head? I
don't think he's wasting time. I think maybe he's just feeling out like how confident is James in putting away these positions? Like how good is he maybe when his time gets a little low? How good is he at converting these games? And I think what we saw there was he's pretty confident at converting.
Yeah, especially up a piece. James is way too strong not to be able to win that position. But Levy goes for his a3 against the Sicilian. And of course, Levy puts out a ton of content on various openings. This has been an opening that he has used before. But at the highest levels, you don't see it very often because you're playing on the wing. Whereas in the opening, you often want to play in the center. So b4 at some moment will be a thematic pawn sacrifice. It's just interesting to me, Amon, and maybe you could speak to this better. Like, why is he playing a kind of offbeat opening and then spending time after it?
Yeah, it's I guess it's something I somehow relate to. Basically, sometimes when you play an offbeat opening, you have a few variations that someone might play, or maybe that you're expecting them to play. It's quite possible that even though he's playing an offbeat opening, he could have checked what Canty plays, and he's trying to play against it. And maybe James just played something new, something different, or maybe he played one of those testing lines against the opening. The problem with offbeat lines, Robert, is they usually have either a refutation or at least a really good reply. So sometimes you play it hoping that your opponent does not play the absolute best thing. And when they do, you're kind of like, damn it. My tricks aren't working here.
Wow. And a humongous raid to this broadcast here. Thank you so much there.
Wow.
Hikaru raid. And of course, Gotham Chess, Levy Rozman. He is often found on Hikaru's channel. So thank you for that huge raid. And well, for all of you, I'm sure many of you are rooting on Levy Rozman. He is in a tough match right now. It's 1-1. James Canty scores a victory in game 2 to even the score. And in game 3, what Aman and I have been talking about is that, hey, it's an offbeat opening. Levy spent some time. Now it's James's turn because he's in unfamiliar territory himself. And I would play a6 just to kick this knight at b5, because when someone plays something like this against me, I'm concerned that there's some tactic that I'm going to overlook. So let me just kick the knight, and James does just that.
Yeah, and welcome to all the raiders. I think Levy, more than anyone, is going to be happy you guys are here because he just had a tough loss in this match. So he's going to need some energy and support to get back in this thing.
For sure. And you were saying that, hey, you want to get out to a good start, not have to rely on your bullet skills. That is what Levy did in the first game. He won. He was feeling confident after that. Now, after game 2, you lose. The momentum may swing a little bit the other way. And what is happening here in game 3? The bishop pair once again for James Canty. But those bishops, especially that light square bishop right now, doesn't have anywhere nice to go.
Yeah, I actually really like Levy's opening. Might not look like much. Black has the 2 bishops. We've actually seen that story in this match before. But Levy's bishop's going to get out to f4 or g5. He's going to go, queen, something like queen d2. And whether he castles long or short, I think he should probably castle queenside. The rooks are just going to come to the center of the board. And you don't see many positions in chess where the 2 central pawns don't move. And you sort of have a good position with the black pieces. Like, you generally do have to take the center at some point.
And yeah, if playing the center here with a move like d6, that doesn't feel right, because then and he plays d5, but we can see all these exchanges take place where you take en passant, right? The pawn moved 2 squares, and for now you can take it as if it moved 1. So you take on d6, you can trade queens on d6, and that pawn on d6 that remains will be a backwards pawn, which I wouldn't be so thrilled about. But James says, I've assessed my odds here. I have to go with this, otherwise I'm going to be dominating the center.
There we go. And that was one of the most interesting first time experience for me. We had a Hikaru raid, and then Hikaru started up his stream again. Maybe what we're doing, are we like viewer farming right now? So 15,000 viewer raid, Hikaru streams, we're gonna get 15,000 more viewers, then we raid him again, and we'll just keep doing that, Robert. I like the cycle. Let's go.
Hey, that works for us, and of course for many of you who are tuning in as fans of both of these content creators. We welcome all of you. So we see that James is king now sitting on e7, not very well placed with a rook coming to e1 with check, for example, but he puts the bishop on e6. He can move his king out of the way. And it still feels to me that despite the double c pawns, that white should be slightly better. I'm just not quite sure how to prove it.
Yeah, and I think that the nice thing to look forward to in any type of endgame here is that it might not look like much, but just the presence of those 2 pawns indicates that black's pawns are generally going to be stuck on light squares, and this light square bishop isn't going to have any targets to attack. If white just plays g3, it's like, imagine an endgame, this bishop's just dancing around these pawns but can't attack them. So I feel like Levy is going to be happy with getting an endgame, finally a less tactical game. He can sort of calm down a bit. He's got the white pieces. He's not down that much on time right now. So I think he's going to be happy just to have a chill game, Robert, to sort of break the momentum.
I'm with you, but there is something frustrating about knowing that you have a slightly better position, but not really, not necessarily understanding, but not finding a way to capitalize on it. And I think that's what's happening right here, at least from my point of view. White is better. You have a knight against a bishop. Why does the knight become better than a bishop in a position like this? The knight can just sit on a dark square. The bishop can do nothing to attack it. But where is the follow-up? I think king d7 makes sense here. That way you avoid the pin. That the pawn on c4 then really becomes under attack. And if you have your d6 pawn under attack, you just put your king on c7. So you just run your king to safety. And I don't know, I'm not really seeing where white is going to make progress.
No, I think in a classical game, this wouldn't be anything to write home about. But in a blitz game, sometimes these advantages are often a little bit more pronounced than you might think. So we'll see how the game develops, but I certainly agree it shouldn't really be anything here for Levy. But he's got a slightly better position, and it depends really how comfortable he is grinding down these small advantages. Some players, as you know, Robert, are specialists there. That's their kind of chess. And some players they just wish the position had a queen on it and it was more tactical.
Yeah, there are definitely people with those preferences. And well, b3 played to defend the c4 pawn. Now knight e4 check, rook e to d3 come to mind as a way to hit a pawn in a dark square. We talk about the problem with a bishop. It can't protect pieces on the opposite color. And so that d6 pawn cemented backwards, that's going to be a problem for James. I didn't really like the move king f6. I feel like he's moving his king away from a lot of the action on the queen side.
Yeah, I think he was maybe a little bit scared to play king d7 just because it looks funny, like walking into the rooks. So he wants to get out of the way. But I think king d7 was actually the better move. And b5 has been played, which if that gets taken, a takes b5, we're going to have an imbalance where in an endgame, there is going to be an outside a pawn. Might not look like much right now, but that could be the major difference in the position.
For sure, because that pawn you can use as a decoy, distract black's pieces that have to deal with that running passer, and then white can operate on the other side of the board. So rook f3 check is played, and well, I see two options. One is bishop f5, just blocking the check with your bishop. You can't play g4 because of that pawn on h5. That's the good news about that pawn being on h5. And honestly, king g7 he played looks fine as well. Rook to d3, you probably just play d5 and protect your pawn that way.
The weird thing about that position is I was actually feeling pretty confident that bishop f5 was one of the better moves. There was no g4, as you mentioned, and bishop f5 also opens up rook e2 next, hitting c2, and just getting on the second rank. And if white goes something like rook d2, it just feels like white is somehow assuming the slightly more passive role at the moment.
I'm with you. And got to shout out Tree Poker for gifting tons of subs. We really appreciate that. Thank you for your support of chess and the channel. So appreciate that.
And he's not even done. He's gifting more subs as you're thanking him. Thanks a lot, Tree Poker. Very kind of you.
Oh, that's awesome. And look at this. We have an endgame with two rooks per side. White no longer has those double pawns. Black no longer is suffering with a questionable bishop against a good knight. So this feels like a position where it should be a hold, but Aman, I'm keeping your idea in the back of my mind that outside a pawn has me preferring white's position in the long run.
Okay, and I'll take the other side and present not only the maybe 1 minute time advantage, I think that's going to be a bit relevant, but also that black's weak pawn can be defended kind of nicely by king e7. The king's in the center of the board, and if black ever attacks this a pawn, white's king has to go pretty far to the queen side and might leave the center exposed. So the nice thing about using the king to defend one of your weak pawns is suddenly it frees up one of the rooks. Suddenly rook e2, rook e4, or rook a8 are all possible. But I do think that the clock is something we need to pay attention to because unfortunately it was the detriment of Levy in that last game. He had a great game, but I mentioned Levy's great under time pressure, but he's not going to be great every single game.
Absolutely. And G3 played, so Levy has 18 seconds left. He could consider b4, actually, now that I look at the position, just to try to get to the b5 pawn, where the rook on d5 looks very promising. And James has no fear. He's just pushing his pawns forward. He can even consider f4 at some point as black to give away a pawn, but then to ruin the pawn structure that remains for white.
Absolutely. And Levy's going for this position where he says, look, my rook defends my pawn, and my pawn defends my pawn, my pawn defends my pawn. There's nothing, that's left loose in this position. And then, as we've been mentioning, a pawn runs to the end of the board in any type of king and pawn endgame. So 14 seconds to 30 seconds. Time is evening up here. I think the evaluation is around equal, but I have a feeling someone's going to win this game, Robert.
Well, I don't like what's happening with Levy's clock. He's down to 7 seconds. And when you play an endgame like this, which may seem just completely docile, it's an even position, nothing to worry about. Then you look at your clock, you freak out, make a quick move, and your position becomes worse by the turn. But I think he should consider b4. That's the move I keep looking at for white, trying to change the pawn structure and use that rook on d5 to your advantage. And look at that.
There we go. And there the rook comes in. I think rook e4, intending maybe f4 is the way to go, but this is good as well.
And I'm really looking at that outside a pawn now.
Yeah. Right? So what Levy wants to do is he wants to get his king up, put his rook behind that pawn, and try to push it as far as it'll go and win the king and pawn endgame. Canty has to be very careful here, in my opinion.
Oh, certainly, because this is one of those positions where it looks completely even and you lose because of the outside pawn. Imagine the rooks are off the board. Oh, this is bad. This is getting bad.
Rook d2 next already looks a bit sketchy.
Yep. And here, king d4, rook d2 check. The good news is the king needs to stay on b4 to protect a5, so it won't be able to take the pawn on c4.
Move. Yeah, that's a great move. King e4, and now king d3. or king d4. Okay,
C3. You're gonna sack C2. Just place. Okay, this still works. King E2 maybe.
King d2, but he's got to make a
You
move
lost
fast.
time.
Oh no.
Oh my gosh.
Robert, I just had this terrible feeling that someone was going to lose this game. It's a draw, it's equal evaluation, but it requires so much accuracy. And wow, that's exactly what Levy needed. If you're in the Levy Rozman camp, I mean, you're definitely cheering for that result, but just tragic for Canty, who played a great game, Robert, and lost it at the very end on time.
And in the words of James Canty's hat, that's not a move. You had to make a move, and
Yeah,
he
he has to
loses
do
on
something.
time. Oh my gosh, like that is so heartbreaking. And we're about to go into our break. The players get to take a little bit of rest, but that must feel horrible as you head into this break. You're going to try to recover from it, but it was great defense that whole game by James Canty III.
Yeah.
And then you lose on the clock. That is, I'm sorry to say, devastating for Team Canty.
It is. Now, as devastating as that is, Robert, as we head into our break, James has to remember that he's only down one game. And when we come back, there's going to be the rest of the 5-minute portion.
For sure. And for all of you out there who are fans of these great content creators, Gotham Chess and GM Canty, we will be right back in a few minutes for more action from the I'm Not GM Speeches Championship, brought to you by Chess.com. And we return getting ready for more 5-minute plus 1 second increment games from this I'm Not GM Speeches Championship match between Gotham Chess and GM Canty. Aman, Canty still must be hurting. He must be reeling after losing on time in that game. How can he recover?
Yeah, Robert, I think it's really important for Canty here to not let the emotions get the better of him. I don't know what type of player he is in terms of controlling his emotions and how much a loss might affect him going into the next game. I think that's kind of a question mark for a lot of us. He seems like, so chill, so vibing when he's playing and then before the match. So if he has that same type of energy, I think that's exactly what he needs right now. Just put it behind him. I think he's already maybe overperforming from what some people thought going into this match. It's 2-1, and he's maybe had a chance to win almost every game in this match so far, Robert. So I think he's doing great, and he needs to remind himself of that.
I think is an excellent point because when you come in as the underdog, you need to believe that you can do it. And based on the 3 games we've seen thus far, he should believe that he can do it. He has been every step of the way in these games. He has, lost the first game, then just lost this last game on time. But he is clearly a worthy competitor and somebody who can challenge a great player in Gotham Chess. And right now, Canty gets the white pieces again. We'll see this Panov. Maybe James looked at it during the break. That is the benefit of having a break, is you can improve on what you did in previous games.
Yeah, and it's recommended even. That's what a lot of the players use and should use that break for. So we'll see if Canty has looked at this. We saw that this was kind of pivotal in a lot of other matches, at least that I've commentated in this I'm Not a GM tournament so far. It's like you use that break to actually double check the line, check it with an engine. Oh, if this opening didn't go well last time, what critical mistake did I make? And let's simply change that for the upcoming round. So both players are looking to repeat this. I understand why Levy's repeating. Hey, you worked fantastic last time. He's going to take that position every game. But Canty, if he's repeating this, he better have something new prepared. And look what we see on the board, bishop f3. That is a new move.
Exactly. And he's protecting the d5 pawn with the bishop on a safer square. Remember that last game where knight a6, knight c7, and then b5 just made white's pieces feel uncomfortable. That bishop on f3, you're not attacking that. Good luck to you. And so now the knight can come to e2 and maybe even eventually to f4 to make that pawn on d5 feel extra nicely defended.
Yep, and bishop f3, I think is the move that I've seen a little bit more often. So Canty basically just changed one single move, but he's going to go with the same setup. That's the nice thing. It doesn't change that much about what he knows about the position, but he is playing a move that the engine prefers here. So small adjustment, and it could make all the difference here as he once again has jumped out to that early lead. Robert, what do you make of this? Canty always seems to be up on the clock.
Yeah, in the early stages, that has been the case, and even actually later in the game. But that worries me a bit for the 3-minute portion if I'm a Gotham Chess fan, because then you don't have all this time to spend in the early part of the game. But here he plays a move b5. This is thematic, where you give up another pawn. That's a pawn that's not defended, so white can grab it in 2 different ways. But the point is the quick activity that black is able to obtain for the cost of another pawn is worth it. There's a king on e1, not yet ready to castle.
Yeah, that's a great point. And the funny thing about a move like b5 is it kind of walks into d6, uncovering the bishop's attack of the rook. But you just sidestep that attack and say, yeah, go ahead and take my pawn on e7. I'll be more than happy to develop the check.
Yeah, it's one of these positions where it's all about that king being the center, because normally d6 would be a great move where you're using one of your doubled, isolated pawns and trading it off for a healthy pawn e7, but it opens the e-file without a pawn there. That's going to backfire.
A4, I mean, Levy just no respect for his own pawns, it feels like here, Robert. He's just chucking them left, right, and center. The A pawn probably saw Levy grab that B pawn, and then suddenly he was off the board. And then he sees him reaching for the A pawn. He's like, oh no, it's my turn.
If I'm Benny Watts, I'm taking my nice little Karakhan mantra back, because he says all pawns, no hope. Levy says no pawns, all hope. And look at him go here. He wants to go after the center. And I wouldn't be surprised if a move like e6 was possible there, saying, take my pawn e6. I'm opening the file up. Your king still sits on e1.
Whatever. Just chuck them all to the wayside. And bishop b7, knight back to c3 by Canty. And we actually see a similar position to last game, but that bishop on f3, it just has to be better placed there.
For sure. It's just much more stable. It can't be attacked. White is going to play knight g1 to e2. So I can see where the play comes from for Levy. He can play knight c7, go after the opponent d5, but White's moves are also pretty easy to spot. Knight e2, castle, move your queen away when it gets under attack. So I don't see the entire compensation for 2 sacrifice pawns. You will likely regain 1 back, but I don't think it's sufficient for true equality. There's some dynamic play that Black has, but I would prefer to have James's position at this point.
Yep. No, and he's played it again. He's up more than a minute here. And if you're up more than a minute and you're up a pawn, the worst that's going to happen most likely is you lose maybe that pawn back. So I think you should be happy with what we see here.
And that's one of the things that I think bogs players down, myself included, where if I've given up material and I see a way to cut that deficit from 2 pawns to 1 pawn, I'm like, wait, then what? I'm still down a pawn. And you start allowing that to weigh on you. And you need to play dynamically and you need to play quickly. Look at James Canty once again up a minute and 40 plus seconds.
Almost 2 minutes. Like I just want to speak on maybe the time management because this is so relatable for me. Usually when you're a player that is confident in your bullet skills, and we know Levy, rocking that 2850 bullet rating, when you're confident in your bullet skills and you know how good of a time scrambler you are, how good at making up deficits you are, sometimes when you see your clock ticking down 145, you're like, whatever, when I have 5 seconds, like, I'm a god, like I can handle that. But you don't need to put yourself in that position. Usually you want to have those skills reserved for when you need them. And then you can show up and save a tough position, but you don't want to be getting in that type of time pressure every single game. It's so easy to let that happen when you see this time and you're like, it's no problem. I'm a good bullet player.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. And I'm looking at the time spent on queen b6, Black's last move. Levy spent 1 minute and 43 seconds. On knight g to e2, James only spent 18.6 seconds. And this is the type of position where White is better over the board, but his biggest advantage may be on the clock as he is up so much time here. And Black doesn't have clear access to saying, I've made up for the fact that I'm down a bunch of pawns. It's not a clear position. So time is so important.
Absolutely. And even after the move queen a2, which might not be the preferred move, maybe he goes queen d3, but just looking at queen a2, like let's say you go greedy, that d pawn's defended on d5, the d pawn on d4 is defended, the knight can't get into b4 or c5, and you're castling next turn. It just feels like you got to put the appropriate weight on being up about 2 minutes here. Like that's an advantage, and that's part of the game.
And the pawn on a4, that's a loner. So even if you go pile up pressure on the d pawn, on one of those pawns, you may drop your pawn on the a file. So I would just play queen a2, then I would castle pretty much no matter what Black does and say, prove it. Prove that you have what it takes to come back from a 2-pawn deficit, especially when you are down so much time.
Yeah, probably knight c7. I'm trying to come up with another move, but knight c7 looks like it. And Levy has played queen b6, rook c8, but neither of those moves actually contribute to getting that d pawn back. So I'm wondering what his plan is with those moves. Is he somehow going to use the pieces? Like the knight on a6, it looks like he can only go to c7. I'm wondering what his plan is in the next couple of moves, Robert.
It's frustrating, right? You want to play knight c7, queen d6, and you realize that even if you get those 2 moves, then bishop f4 can be a response. The knight on e2 can go to f4 itself, but it defends that square, so the bishop would be able to develop with tempo. Queen b3, trading off queens when you're down 2 pawns, maybe it's all right, but I would be very reluctant to do something like that.
Yep. And one important thing, which I think Levy's relying on, is that his knight might get into the action with knight b4, using that pin on the a file, knight d3 check, knight c2 check. It's all about takes, and Levy wants to play knight b4. So keep an eye on that. James can look to prevent that with like rook b1 afterwards, or he could just develop his pieces and say, look, you can have that knight in, you can have that square. I'm still up 2 pawns.
Yeah, I think he should trade queens, but maybe he doesn't have to, because what is Black's threat? Are you really just going to take on a2? That doesn't scare him. So he actually castles. That's probably the better option. It doesn't give Levy those tactics that you were just talking about him on. So with 30 seconds to 2 minutes, prove it. And I think this is a great strategy by James in this game. You lost game 3 on time. Now in game 4, you keep saying, you prove it. You show me that you can have sufficient compensation for the material.
And queen c2, I mean, this has got to be in James' favor here. The bishop can just develop, And after the bishop develops, I mean, the rook just slides over to c1. I don't see any issues in the position here for James. I mean, take your pick about where you want to develop that bishop to, but rook c1, rook e1, rook d1 are coming. I like what James has got going on here.
Yeah, and all with tempo, right? So bishop g5, perhaps, just to try to even take on f6. He was bishop e3. That's more solid. I like that. As you said, rook c1, rook d1. That knight can go to f4 if you attack d5 again. I can't get behind this position. I think that it's just too much trouble for Levy, especially with 12.7 seconds.
And I think Levy is planning to go queen f5. If he gets attacked, queen back to d7, at least reclaim that d pawn, and then go from there. But bishop e3 is a nice move because it watches d4, and as you mentioned, it lets knight f4 happen, watching d5, so everything's covered here in Canty's position.
Okay, so now knight h5 was the first move that came to my mind. Once you push a pawn, you sort of relinquish control over the square that it previously was covering. So knight h5 trades some pieces. It also removes an attacker of the d5 pawn. The g5 pawn itself is weak because there's bishop on e3. So I think that's a pretty good move to make.
And keep in mind, there's also d6 as a threat. Hitting f7, long range, and the knight in that position after knight takes h5, bishop h5. So it even works out there.
Yeah. And he's spending a lot of time. This is actually what got him into trouble in previous games, where the position is complicated and that he went too low in the clock. And he's probably thinking, do I throw in rook c1? He does so. Queen f5 looks like the only real option.
Automatic move.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that inclusion benefits Canty because now knight h5, let's say takes, there's maybe g4. Right. And yeah, so he's going to go knight g3. Bishop back to e4. Bishop d1 might actually be an interesting move.
I really like bishop d1 because you go bishop c2 and take over the f5 square for your knight.
I think he's going to go rook d1 and bishop d3. Same idea. Bring that knight in, and he does.
Yeah, and bishop d3 traps the queen, actually.
Oh, my goodness.
Right? It looks like you're just trying to take the f5 square, but the queen is trapped. So queen b1. Yeah, queen b1.
Queen b1, and it hits the bishop. That's game over. He plays queen b1.
Wow, no, I would not have played that.
Oh, he flags. Oh my goodness. It's that +1, Robert. So deceptive. That's barely enough time to register the move and make one of your own.
Well, can we just bring up that position again? Because
that was wild.
f3 is such a dangerous move to play because you're opening up your own king.
So we would take that instinctively and maybe just h4.
Right.
Taking advantage of the pin. Hitting the knight, and all of a sudden, in a time scramble, if Levy gets those two moves off, like take this, pre-move h4, you've got yourself a game here.
Exactly. So James really was playing with fire there. It works out in his favor, and as we get into this new game here, I mean, it's Trompowsky attack, so we're getting obscure, not so obscure, but less popular openings, and James is once again up a pawn, but his queen is in a iffy spot in the center of the board, could be attacked many times. I think that Levy is just relying on the active play, and James has been taking what Levy's been giving him so far.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, is that James is sitting there saying, look, you're going to play these offbeat openings against me. They're not top tier for a reason. I'm going to go ahead and take the material, give me the material, and you prove that, this is crushing for you. What we have here is, as you mentioned, the Trompowsky. I think this is a fun line for white to play. So I kind of like Levy's position, but that's just been the story the whole time. Levy has had a lot of fun positions to play with compensation, but James just keeps taking that material and saying, all right, prove it. I'm going to take these all match.
I think the most troubling sign for me is that Levy spends a lot of time after playing these openings, because it's a part of it is the surprise factor. When you play something that is not standard, you're relying on the fact that you know it better and that you will be able to play the moves quickly, so you'll get that lead on the clock. But that has not been the case. James has been able to meet these openings with quick responses, and he's playing quite well, right out of the gate. So it is concerning for Levy as we continue here. It is a 2-2 match, but Aman, justify the pawn sacrifice for me. White is down a pawn. Tell me why I should approve of White's position here.
Yeah, I mean, especially after d6, if you have d6, e5 against the bishop, like a London bishop, let's call it, or a bishop on this diagonal, h2 to b8, you're already feeling good because that bishop's completely blunted. There's nothing going on here. h6 even covers g5. In this position, I mean, you're just hoping for bishop d3 and trying to chase that queen. But, even if you waste a lot of time, maybe 3 moves in a row, bringing that queen back. The problem is, Robert, we've got a closed position, and closed positions are exactly where you can, let's say, quote unquote, waste time like that, or make a bunch of moves that don't complete your development. If this position was wide open, I'd be a lot more concerned for Canty.
Completely agreed. And the idea for white is maybe like bishop d3, but the queen's not trapped because you have the g4 square. And now there's a bit of a problem because the h pawn would like to go back to h3 there. No, can't happen. And knight d7, clever play by James. Bishop d3 now met by queen takes d5, which was not possible before because there would have been a check, discovery, a fossil, if you will, and the queen would have been hanging on d5.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And time again, Canty just takes the material and runs away with it, basically. And it's up to Levy to prove this. I don't think he's in a terrible position. This is still, well within the realm of what position you can expect from this line. He might want to go queen b3, a4, a5, knight d2, or bishop d3, always kick the queen out.
Right. I'm with you, man. And I think here now that queen should probably say, my stay has been excellent, but I'm no longer welcome on the e4 square. It feels like if you leave it there too long, bishop d3 will hurt you, especially if you make the move bishop g4, which looks like a very natural move. Then bishop d3 traps your queen on the spot.
It's true. That would be a terrible thing to do. A terrible thing.
So probably just castle would be my move. You still always have that g4 square to escape to.
The other thing that's kind of, a5, I was just going to say after knight d7, you can almost play like knight takes e5 and bishop d3, trapping the queen once again. Oh no, the g2 pawn hangs. Oh, it's so close. Oh man.
So maybe you should throw in the sneaky, no idea what you're doing with rook h2.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, don't mind me. Just look over there for a sec, buddy.
Yeah, this is any castles. But by the way, Levy is now ahead on the clock. We made a big deal about how James has been the one up on time throughout the match. Right now, Levy does have quite a substantial lead on time. However, he's down a pawn. I don't see the clear compensation. And a big problem for white is where you're going to castle. If you castle kingside, the only way you can legally castle, now you sort of regret having your pawn on h4 as your kingside is a little bit more vulnerable.
And it's actually really impressive that James is able to leave his queen on e4 for so long. I just couldn't do it. I would just look at that queen and be like, no, I'm about to get trapped. Something's going to go horribly wrong here. I'm so scared of these like knight tricks to trap the queen. But James says, look, I mean, it doesn't work. Just calculate that out. Those are concrete calculations, and it looks like he's made them here.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the players right now. James is locked in. Like he no longer is seated. He is just fully focused, head right at the computer screen. And this is his chance, right? He's probably feeling that, hey, I was down 2-1 after losing on time. Now look at this. It's 2-2. I'm up a pawn. I'm ahead on the clock. My queen's not getting trapped, thankfully. So f5 comes to mind for black in the near future. Be very careful here if you are Levy, because this position can get quite bad in the near future. But h5 played, taking away some squares from that queen, and maybe there's a rook h4 type of idea in the future.
And it's funny, Levy also looks locked in. Like, these guys both look like they're calculating really, really hard right now. The problem is what you're seeing is James is calculating where he knows that he probably has the upper hand. Things are sort of going to work in his favor. That's how chess generally works. If you feel you have a slightly better position, the tactics often work for you. Whereas Levy's calculating like a guy who wants to make things work. He's trying to find the trickier ways to play and the ways that Canty might slip up.
Yeah, and I said this at the top of the show, is that you cannot play chess for a result, because then you're distracted, you're not being objective, and chess is a very objective game. So if you have results-oriented thinking, you aren't playing your best chess. And look at this, a trade of bishops here. You would like to get bishop d3 in very quickly and then put your knight on f5, but bishop d3 would always be met by pawn to e4, and maybe e4 now is good for black. Put that knight on e5 and just take over the board.
I agree. f5, I think this move is also playable. But what I don't like is that queen, Robert, not to give you flashbacks, but queen on h7, knight g6. I mean, it's just in a coffin over here.
I see what you did there. And, you wanted to remind me of what happened to my queen when we were playing the Chess.com Chessbro match. But you're right that even if knight g6 isn't the immediate move and Levy doesn't play, I think it was smart to hold back from it. You just created weaknesses for yourself that you're going to have to look at move after move. And now we're back to a situation, Levy a bit ahead on the clock. He's finally ready to castle if he wants to. And where is James going from here? I think e4 should be played. E4, try to get your knight d5. Plays rook f7.
And the funny thing about the position is, although Levy might be down a pawn, believe me, it's going to be a long time before that matters. Look at that extra pawn. It's on b7. There's no queenside play to speak of. This game is all about the king side, and hey, the pawns are equal on the king side. So I think Canty, by the way, played rook f7 for knight f8. He did not like knight g6, so he wanted to be able to remove that piece when it comes there. In fact, he might play knight f8 right away.
But he might not like the look of g4 at some moment. Probably not now, and he plays knight f8 to allow a trade on g4. And the rook on f7 also protects g7, so you are making sure that in the event the g file opens up, you're not just going to get a blistering checkmate on the square. So I do approve of this. I think maybe you should use that extra pawn. You mentioned it. It's not doing anything. At some point, play b6. What?
What an insane move.
G5?
And it's not that it's terrible. It's just insane.
I did not see that coming, right? That might be a good move, though.
He's like, Levy, I heard you were trying to play g4. Well, sorry, buddy. I got there first.
Wow, that is a move. And
wow. And takes. First of all, it's important to note that if everybody takes and you go bishop h5, looking to win material, don't forget that little sneaky check. James is not about to drop material there. Wow.
That is an awesome move. We're going to have to remember to ask James about this moment. That was real. I don't even care about the result. That's just to even think about G5. And that's the hardest part. If once it's played, you're like, oh, actually, that makes a lot of sense. But to even think about it during a game when you have under a minute on the clock, that's phenomenal stuff. And I like his position all of a sudden.
Oh, man. The knight's coming to e4. He's flipping this around completely. And the time is even now. In fact, it's swinging in Canty's favor.
What a brilliant move. That is... I am still in shock. And as I try to look at the position as it unfolds here, you said knight f6 can come to e4 or even to g4, depending on what happens. This bishop can develop, rook to e8, take over the e-file. The white king is not safe.
No,
right?
and king f2, there's always like a g4 at some point, and queen d4 check. Just always have to consider that. That knight is coming straight into e4, and now that the king's on f1, yep, can't take that.
Oh, boy.
And Levy probably underestimated that. He was previously with the king on e1, probably planning to take.
And where does that queen even go? If you go to the e-file, rook e8, then there's knight discoveries to win the queen on the e-file. This is, I mean, you can just take back
pawn
on
takes g5. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, my goodness, what a game by James Canty.
Wow. Queen e1.
Just take on g5.
Yeah, it looks logical, but I mean, g4's rook e8 first. Like, hello, let's start with that.
Because h6 isn't okay. He went queen because he was worried about h6, I guess, but that wasn't actually that concerning. And James needs to move more quickly. We've seen him throw away decent positions, good positions in time trouble. He's got his under 20 seconds, and he has been the one who has faltered when the clock starts dwindling.
And I don't mind this move, queen h6, but he needs a rook on the e-file. It's been too long with that one, and now maybe it doesn't even work because it's queen g5. Takes it, queen g5.
But queen, do we trade everything? Is knight trapped? No, it's not. Is that the h3 square?
It's got e6 as well, let's say if need be, but yeah, you're right. There's also h3.
So he grabs the pawn and it goes e3. I think that James is in great position. Look at that move, rook h4, winning a c4 pawn.
But Levy can't complain. We saw the position he previously had. You can't complain with what you got here.
No, this is by far the best. Oh, and the rook should went to the d file, I think. Take on e6 by rook e4, game over. Because all pawn end games are going to be winning for blacks. Oh, I don't love that move, but still...
he's got to be careful.
Yep.
Oh.
So b6.
Well, hang on. c3 is winning on the spot. c3, c2.
So take on h6. You're up 3 pawns over here. Oh, I don't like that move. You should not let the king come back on this way. I think Levy... Oh, it's close. King c5.
So I think this is probably winning. 2 pawns is, I think, technically a draw, but there's no way he's going to have time to set it up.
No. And there's also that extra pawn just in case. Like, I don't know if that matters, but it could. So rook d2, game over.
King a1, don't take it.
Don't take it. Don't take that rook. a3. That's smart. Nice try, though, by Levy. That was creative.
Very nice try.
And don't play rook b2 because that puts the king in a stalemate. So do not play... Ooh, I don't like that.
Check.
Yeah, rook c2.
Yeah, okay. Nice move. These guys are both playing really well here.
Yeah, they really are.
Rook c1 intended. You got to go rook b8 or rook b5.
c3, just push that pawn, I think. Okay.
Probably rook check.
King e3. Oh, I don't.
King c1. Just what a wild position.
No.
What?
No, there could be a stalemate.
Oh my
No, rook
goodness.
takes c2. Rook takes c2. It was
Rook takes c2 doesn't work anymore.
Oh.
What the hell was
Oh
that?
my gosh.
What the hell was that?
Oh.
That endgame must have fluctuated from winning to draw so many times, and Levy was using the chess tactic Desperado, where the position on the board is a draw except for one piece that you have. So you take that piece and you say, hey, over here, take me.
Okay.
And eventually he had to.
That was one of the most exhilarating games I've been a part of. First of all, I'm not going to forget about James Canty's G5. That was a stellar move. And then you have to just say, you know what? Levy Rozman, with amazing awareness of the fact that there could be stalemates, he was losing that endgame for sure, but he found it just in time. And James in time trouble once again. That's been his kryptonite.
Just insane. What a crazy game. That the poor eval bar, Robert, just got the biggest workout of the day.
Yeah, that's very true. It was swinging up and down real fast. And by the way, I haven't been able to make fun of the opening choice here because the Scandi, I'm sure Greg Shahadi, a participant in this tournament, is laughing about the Scandinavian, but we did see a Scandi, and that's why Levy's queen's in the center as we get to the current position. And James should be very happy once again.
Yeah, he's got a very standard type of position here in c4 queen h5 played. Yeah, can't complain here if you're Canty. Got to watch out for a little trick here. Bishop takes h2 with the pin on the knight there, but h3 covers that.
Yeah, and white just has more space, has two pawns out on the fourth rank. None of black's pieces, besides the queen, are past your own third rank. So easy development coming for white. I would much prefer James's position, and so Levy will have to figure this out on his own here, and he's also down a bit on the clock.
Yeah, and how about that last game? Like, in terms of what it means for the players, I feel like Levy almost treats that game like a win. Like, that's how it must feel. He made an insane comeback from like a dead loss position, and then yeah, it probably feels that way to him. Whereas James knows that he was winning that game and threw it away at the end.
Yeah, and we saw his face. He was pretty devastated by the fact that he didn't win that game. He could have gone ahead in this match. And what he needs to do is just look at the position that he has on the board right now. His position is good, right? He has a new game. His position is good. I didn't like the move c5 because that leaves a hole in the d5 square and leaves you with his pawn on d4. That is kind of backwards, but he says, I'm going to put my bishop on f4 and take advantage of kicking my opponent's bishop out. So he has a good position. That's my ultimate point. He should take a breath, just look here at this game and play as if it's 0-0 because it's a tied match.
And what happens on knight takes? Like, is it worth just full simplification? Takes on c7 and try to go for that position? Bishop h2. He doesn't want to.
Yeah, he didn't want to drop the d4 pawn, but I'm with you. That looked pretty good. I guess he's saying, hey, please do take me on c3 because when I take back with the b pawn, your c7 pawn is under attack. My d4 pawn is strengthened, and the b file will be open for my rook. So instead, Levy smartly plays bishop f6, and I expect some kind of just rook d1 to rook fd1, I guess, to defend the pawn.
Yep. One of those rooks to d1, it's going to be the a rook. So in case the e file, I mean, it is a semi-open file for white, so rook f to e1 is going to make some sense in the future. And Canty, don't forget opening up that around 30-second time advantage early on in these games. It might not look relevant right now when these players have so much time, relative to the blitz that everyone plays nowadays. But that 30 seconds, if these guys play at the same pace, suddenly it's 30 seconds when the guy has 10 seconds to 40, and it means the world.
I'm with you. And I look at the eval bar. It says that white's ever so slightly better. But from my point of view here, it just seems easier to play for white. I actually don't see what black's plan is exactly. And a3, white can try to play b4. It feels like even if it's not concretely that good for white, I'm threatening something. It looks like I'm threatening something, and you're going to have to deal with that move after move.
Yep, so this knight tied down to that c7 pawn. Keep in mind, if that c7 pawn just drops for any reason, the d6 square is gone and black's position just collapses 100%. I'm also just looking at that queen and saying, okay, I just always have to be cognizant of the fact that it doesn't have a lot of squares left on the board to move to. So, some type of attacks, G4 and G3, in the right moment when things are protected, could put the question of that queen.
I'm with you again. And I mean, I'm looking at this position. What is Black's plan? It looked like E5 was what you wanted to do, but that's not happening. Not with a knight on F3, a bishop on H2, the pawn on D4, and the queen and the rook on the E file. So I would probably move my queen away to maybe queen C2, queen B3 comes to mind as a way to just poke and prod at Black's queen side over there. And as you're pointing out, the queen on H5 just doesn't have the same power and the same access to better squares.
And it's important to note, knight takes F6 check. Levy's absolutely recapturing with the G pawn, not only because he needs to protect C7, but also because I think it's a good move anyways. It covers the E5 square and it opens a dangerous G file to White's king.
That's definitely true. And the knight on D5 is so powerful in a light square. It's the entire reason I did not like when James went C5, because you give your opponent a square and now you have this pawn on D4 that's stuck in place. So I think Levy's honestly playing this very well, and he's keeping about level on the clock. He's down a little bit, but as we've seen, if he's the one lower in the clock, he still manages to hold on despite that time deficit. So for now, okay. I still am concerned, though, about how Levy's been using his time.
Yeah, what I think Levy should do is make much quicker moves, because I don't think that, and he's played King H8. The thing is, look at that eval bar. After King H8, the eval bar barely changed. I don't think Levy is at risk of making a huge blunder of any sort here. So, just throw in Queen F5, throw in Queen G6, King H8, Rook D7, like just some small move and really get that time on the clock back, because you're looking at Levy's position and saying, well, I don't really know what the guy's going to do. But at the same time, he's got a great looking position right now. So he can almost just kind of shuffle around in a blitz sense.
You're right. And an important point is Rook B3, which I imagine was James's idea, can be met by Knight A5. It's a typical move that defends your pawn on B7 while attacking the rook. And that's necessary because you do not want to drop that pawn. And so it's a clever response available to Levy there.
Yeah, and if James ever gets tempted by the move B4, it might do him more harm than good, because you don't really need to connect these pawns. And the pawn on B2, it might not look like it, but covering the C3 square is really important. And that's why he played rook to D3. He wanted queen takes H3 with some sort of knight move, knight E5 hitting the queen.
Wow. James, first with G5, now with G4. I don't really like it that he followed up with knight takes bishop, because you were talking about how Black wanted to take with the pawn F6 anyway. And now with the pawn on G4, that becomes a bit of a target. But I think right now he kind of has to slide his king to H1. I don't like this king being the G5.
This is a position where I think Levy is extremely happy. He's probably going to follow up with some sort of H5 or maybe F5, probably the H pawn, slide the rook over. This knight on D5, what a monster. You just can't get rid of it.
Well, let me counter this. What about some kind of knight G2, bishop G3, bishop H? Okay, he went knight F3 back, but I was wondering if that bishop can slide out and try to get to the H4 square at some point.
I really like the move knight G2, just as an idea to go to F4, maybe to go to E3. As you said, bishop G3, plug the G file with pieces so that it's less of an impact when it gets pried open with H5.
Yeah. And I see the eval bar favoring Black, but I would say it's not very easy to prove that. But Rook G8 is a step in the right direction. Rook G1 would be my response, because I see that there's a queen and rook there trying to open up the file. I don't want that to happen. I can play Rook G1 as a response to F5 or H5. So that's probably why he felt no rush to move his rook.
Yeah, the rook's going to slide over, let's say, if H5. This knight, where is it trying to go? It could go to C4 and E3. It could go to E4 and C3. But I think getting rid of this knight is definitely a big idea for Canty.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I'm trying to think, do I play queen E4? Do I offer queen? He puts his knight back on F3. He feels aimless right now. He went knight H4, knight F3, knight D2, knight F3. And he does not mind making a draw, because he's down on clock and his position looks worse to my eyes. But he hasn't found a plan yet. Knight takes F6 at some point. Watch out for that. Just maybe not yet.
In general.
But the bishop wants to land on E5. So interesting idea.
So something like, knight there, for example, rook F3, knight H4, maybe rook takes F6 and bishop E5.
100%.
Your
rook
idea.
F3, good move.
And knight H4, it's easy to blunder that. Rook takes F6. I don't know if it works, but it certainly looks good following your idea of getting that bishop to E5 with a sacrifice.
I think it does work. I mean, you win a pawn and a knight for the rook, and the king is weak. The rook and g will be under attack, and I actually don't really know what black should
How
do
about
right now.
f5? What about f5 takes and knight f4? Is that
F5 here.
anything?
You're a brave guy. But
You
can
know,
I? Yeah, maybe. But can I put my queen on F1 at the end of that? Like I take your knight
I
gets
think
F1,
so.
queen F1. I say you're not checkmating me.
Yeah, I think that has to be it. And actually, that could backfire on Levy. He has a number of ways to go wrong here. Maybe f5 is not the best. Maybe knight h4 is not the best. He goes
Oh,
e5 of all moves. This is going to get wild at the finish.
and look at the time 24 seconds left for Levy, 25 seconds almost for James. He takes the pawn. Now the knight's trying to come to f4, so be careful about that. But what does knight f4 actually attack? You've given up the f5 square, so knight g3 comes to mind. There it is. Watch out, knight h5, knight f5 coming.
E5 pawn is hanging, by the way, and he's
Yes.
trying to bait him in to queen e5 with a rook d1 at the end.
And now b7 is hanging. You may not have seen important, but that pawn can be captured if rook d4, for example. And that knight is coming in the game.
Yep.
In 8 seconds. Uh-oh.
Wow, this is going to be a crazy finish.
And I know Levy plays a lot of hyper bullet, but you do not want to be down to 5.8 seconds in this position. He plays f6. Knight h5, dangerous move, but he has the g file under his control with a rook g3, rook g1.
He does. And that knight is going to be hanging on f4 at the end. You can trade everything here.
That's a really good point. Trade and take on f4. It's a very good idea. He doesn't do it just yet. And Levy barely got that move off with point-something seconds left.
Oh, my goodness. Queen g4, queen e4.
Oh, gosh. That's made. So queen takes b7, only move. He plays queen f1, but queen e4.
No, it's over. Oh, queen takes f6 trick.
Oh, queen f6.
Queen takes f6.
Oh, he missed it. Wow. Oh,
I don't know if it was going to be a draw there, but it looked like great chances. Queen takes f6. Bishop e3. The h-pawn's loose. It's not completely but it should be a win for Levy.
Wow. Levy is just proven to be stronger in time trouble. That's right now, that's where this match is at. Wow.
And he takes it. He doesn't want to risk anything at this point.
But just don't run your king away too far, because then g5 will win for white.
Yeah. I like c6 by Canty. You know, it looks maybe irrelevant, but hey, that's a chance at some point using the outside h-pawn. He should be lost here. And Levy knows what to do.
Nope, this is not going to work. The king is in the box, and the king comes back and stops the pawn. Yep.
And the A pawn and the G pawn are going to run. And Chess Bay with the gifted subs. No doubt a little bit of celebration there as well for Levy Rozman as he takes the lead in this match again. And this might be the last game of this 5-minute portion, Robert.
Yeah, it looks like it will be, because they're under 5 minutes remaining, and these games have gone a long time. And Levy goes back to this variation where James did seem well prepared. He didn't win the game. He uncorked that really brilliant G5 move that we were very fond of, especially me. And I don't know if I approve of going back to this variation. What do you think, Aman?
I think that James is generally going to be happy to repeat most of the things that we've seen in this match. I'll put it that way. Like, I think that he's been comfortable taking these pawns. I think it's in his style. And I think that obviously we've got a very close match here, Robert. I think that it's working out. So he's saying, look, I might be, dropping a few of these games, but I'm very happy to keep taking the material. And what he knows is that we haven't had a break since the last game. So it's not like Levy has had time to check the line or anything like that. So he knows, look, the guy is just repeating the line. Maybe he'll switch something up, but it's not like he has any new theory. After a break, maybe we'll see him check the line himself, and the guys might change things up. But right now, I think he's fine to repeat.
Yeah, and actually, I like this version much more than what happened in the previous game for Levy, because at least he has an aggressive position. That queen on e4 looked problematic for James, but it was somehow safe in the center. Now the queen is back on f6, but look at white storming on the king side. So don't be playing bishop to e7 and castle king side, as g5 will rip that whole side of the board open, and your king will be in danger.
Absolutely. He's just tickling that b7 pawn, saying, you can't develop your bishop anywhere. Not that you have a lot of great options, but you're tied down to defense for the moment. And what he wants to do is just slowly play like c4, bishop d3 if possible, knight, h3 or e2, and really just slowly get developed. I think if all that happens, he has a very good, as you said, attacking position here. And e4 by James Canty. He's not looking to let Levy get that slow development that I was just talking about.
But he missed that move, I think. Queen a4 check, unless he intentionally did this, but queen a4 picks up that pawn without ruining white's pawn structure. So I'm going to venture and say that James just overlooked that check, which is a nice
I think he
find by
did.
Levy there.
I
And
think he
after
did. Yeah,
bishop e7, the pawn c3, though that's under attack. So rook c1 was, you went rook b1, now rook c1. It's a little slow, but yeah, it just feels like this had to help Levy's position.
for sure. I still think, Levy's got this strange position where he's got like 4 pawns flying down the king side and, an open file to the king in the middle of the board. It's not like if Levy castles, his king is getting any more safe. So James probably has the safer king options for the future. But right now, Levy winning that pawn back, we've seen how equal or how close this game can be when Levy's down a pawn. Now he's got it back, and technically the material is equal.
Although I wonder what black does right now, because if you castle kingside, there could be g5, and that spells trouble. Opening the h file doesn't seem very friendly for black. So I'm wondering if you try to even play king d8 at some point and slide that rook to e8 and use that to your advantage.
Yeah, the entire queen side is pretty closed off. So even if the king just sort of hid on c7, I don't think it would be that bad.
Right. And I guess g5 is already a threat, though, for white that you have to be careful about, because black would not be able to capture on g5 as the rook on the h8 is loose over there. So that's a tactic that I'm now better understanding. And that's something that James is surely considering as a response to his next move.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And if that queen is not there, bishop d6, well, in the current position at least, always hangs. So something to look out for. I wonder if knight e5 is a move.
Ooh,
so hang on.
What about
g5?
Let's show this variation. G5, h takes g, h takes g, rook h1. And if gf6, knight f6, how does this play out?
Right, because you've got this hanging knight on g1. I guess there's a check on a4, but that could be interesting. Check on a4 and like queen c2 and queen h2.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Like trapping the rook there and ending up with the advantage.
That is beautiful stuff. Nice find there. So, okay, so I guess you can't go ahead and take the rook. Maybe you would just have to take on g5 twice, and well, you can't do that either. So, ooh, maybe you have to queen g6.
He's thinking about g5 for sure. Levy is calculating that one out right now because it looks so strong.
Right. You have to play queen g6 then. We just process elimination. Your queen is trapped otherwise. So I guess queen g6 was enough for Levy to say, you know what, I'm not going to force the action there. I don't see a clear conclusion that's favorable for me. Let me just stop b5.
Yeah, and I think that's the right way to go. I think the Levy of 5 games ago might have spent a lot of time there, gone for g5, and the game would have got wild and he would have got low on time. a4, he's up a minute here. Let's keep things controlled. Stop b5. He's won a pawn on e4 thanks to that tactic earlier. There's no need to push the tempo here.
Yeah, so material is even, but the pawns have been captured, not the same. Black has a b pawn, white has an e pawn, and many advanced pawns for Levy at this point. And James, he's moving too slowly. I see that he's struggling more. He's even the match score and has been playing really well, but the clock has not been his friend.
No, the last couple games have been a little bit different. And those time scrambles, Levy has been truly impressive in, which is what we expect from him. b5 played, that is a pawn sacrifice officially, if Levy wants to take that. I wonder what Canty is planning. Is he just going to castle after that?
Hey, man, sometimes you got to go full Toby Maguire with the pawn sacrifice. But if the thing is, there's rook a1, right? So a b5, a takes, bishop takes. There's like a rook a1 move that tries to distract the rook so the queen on c can take on c3.
It's a funny move. Yeah, queen takes c3 and everything gets hit.
But there's clearly a problem with it because the evaluation went really high in white's favor.
No, you're perfect, Robert. That's a great line.
It looked fun.
It looked fun, exactly. These engines taking the fun out of everything. Knight h3, finally a developing move from Levy. We haven't seen one of those in quite some time. If you look at how many pawns, he's actually moved every single pawn at some point that he has on the board.
And now James says, my turn, knight into e5. I wanted to play c4 and get that knight into c5 instead, but perhaps he felt he didn't have time to accomplish that. And the knight on e5, it does put pressure on the f3 pawn. And after bishop takes e5, the h4 pawn is going to be loose in many different variations.
Yeah. And you got to be careful. Bishop takes e5. Don't take with a pawn because there would be d6, hitting the rook on a8 and hitting the bishop on e7. So you would have to take back with the queen there.
Very good point. And here, knight f4. Is that knight coming just straight over there to h5? No, not yet, because f3 is hanging. So black does have a turn to say knight h5 doesn't crush me just yet, but it could be a big problem in the future. So he castles. Yep. Wow.
He takes that moment to castle. It's important to note that g5 didn't quite win that pawn there because white would throw in rook takes h8 and draw the queen away. And black castles here. So now he's looking to probably play bishop e2 and then threaten a knight to h5 idea.
But the good news is black will have queen g6. Maybe there's some kind of bishop d8, bishop a5. The reason I'm thinking about that is I want to open the e-file, and I also want to improve my really bad bishop on e7. That bishop is just staring into its own pieces. So bishop d8 comes to mind at some point.
Okay, this is what I was expecting from Levy. He guards that pawn, intends knight to h5, and it's up to James how he wants to react. He's down, getting close to about, 40, 50 seconds. And he decides to take so that long term he always has a passed a pawn, and he does have the b file to work with. But it looks like this game is mainly going to be decided on the king side here.
It's what it seems, but perhaps the b file will come to James's advantage, right? If he can just put a rook on b8 and swing it all the way down to b2, for example, I could see James countering very quickly on the queen side.
If there's no immediate breakthrough on the king side for Levy, then suddenly the tempo switches to the other side of the board. The time is evening out a little bit as we see a quick reply by Canty.
And suddenly it seems like black has a much more obvious plan. White's position has looked good. In fact, it looks almost dominating. But then you're like, wait, if I play knight h5, the queen will go to g6. Okay, queen's safe there. If I play g5, maybe the queen comes into f5, or I drop a pawn. So there's thought required with every single move for Levy at this point. And it feels like black can try to make a move like rook f to b8 or pawn to a5, as you were talking about.
Definitely, yeah. Even at some point, like pawn to c4, you mentioned earlier, and just sacrifice that knight in on d3. Sometimes just opening the position. We talked about how Levy's king is not the most safe. On e1, g5 played, we do have a response to that. Takes and queen f5, I think is what James is going to go for.
And Levy will probably play e4, just give up the g5 pawn and go for the attack on the king side. But perhaps that rook on b8 will come in handy down the line here, because at some point you can use it to attack the queen and try to create threats of your own.
Yep, okay, he decides to take it. e4 to follow.
Okay, so bishop
back.
I don't really want to play bishop h7 because that gets it trapped. So he goes this way, but now I'm worried about the h file. Like, can rook on c1 land on h8 somehow?
Exactly. That would be a checkmate. Very hard to get out of. f6, there's always g6.
Yeah, but g5 is hanging for the foreseeable future, and I don't see a way to protect it.
Bishop h4, you're not happy to play that move. And then let's not forget about that 8 pawn we mentioned earlier. 30 seconds now to 14 ticking down. He's got more than double the time of Levy.
He does. And this is our final game of the 5-minute portion as the match clock has expired. And rook b2 looks, just play that move. Bring that rook into the game. Then bishop b5 comes to mind. He takes the pawn, but f4.
Take it. Wow, he's going straight for it. And this has been the theme the entire match, Robert. He takes the pawns that Levy offers.
But knight f6 check here? Oh, he doesn't play it, but I thought knight f6 was a possibility there to distract the g pawn.
Strong.
And he castles knight e3.
Oh my goodness. No, goodness, he's blundering this.
Yeah, left and right, unfortunately, in the
he's
time
got 2 seconds.
And he's just a5, a4.
What about that 8 pawn? Yeah, let's not forget a5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And he is just trying to create threats with e6. And I like it, but it should not be taken, and it isn't by Canty.
Just now start taking the pawns.
Yeah.
a3? Don't mind if you do, right?
Yeah, I think he can just push here. And even bishop b5, just a final move to cover.
And he says, I don't need it. a2, rook to b1, or rook takes e7.
Rook takes e7. Nicely done. He gets a queen, and there's no checkmate on e8, so nothing really to worry about there. I'm trying to invent a checkmate. 2.7 seconds. Rook e2 is classy as well. Everything is hanging. Mate on the board. And we are actually going to go into the break after the 5-minute portion. Tied, Robert. Did you expect that coming into this match at all?
No, I didn't. And while I certainly respect James Canty III as a fantastic player, I didn't quite expect him to be able to keep level in the longest time control. We've seen time and time again, the stronger player with more time on the clock tends to take the lead. But Canty has come prepared. He has come emotionally pretty stable. Yes, he was devastated at points when he didn't win certain games, but he was able to bounce back. And that final game right there to not just, get out of control. You blundered a pawn in the center. He said, no, I got this. We got this. We're moving forward. James Canty III is locked in, and he's in an even match with Levy Rozman.
Yeah, super, super impressive. Got to give credit to Canty. Now, Levy also wiggled his way out of some insane positions. I'm just remembering the stalemate that we saw from him. And I think I mentioned this at the beginning of the match, but I feel like the story is going to be basically how impressive can Levy be in time pressure? Because I don't think he's changing anything in his style. It's just built in. He's going to get low on time. He's so impressive in those time scrambles, but is he going to be able to do that enough of the time when Canty's out there just taking pawns left and right and saying, hey, show me the win, show me the win? It's going to be very interesting to watch in the shorter time controls, whether that time disadvantage that Levy seems to be getting into, that pressure, is that going to affect the shorter time controls more?
It's a question we'll have to let the players answer, and they should be looking at their openings because it feels like they can catch each other there, especially with the lower time limits here. However, we're going to take a break. I'm going to grab some water. Aman, you do your thing. We will be back in just a few minutes with more action from this Levy Rozman, James Canty III, I'm Not a GM Speed Championship match brought to you by Chess.com. Well, of course, we still have more action from this matchup between Gotham Chess and James Canty. But we want to remind everybody of PodChamps 3 coming up in mid-February, presented by Grip 6 and other great sponsors. It's going to be another fun one with the likes of XQC, Code Miko, Ludwig, and more. Amon, that one's going to be fun, but I just can't get this match out of my head. The way that these two players have gone back and forth, taking a lead, then the match is even up once again. What to make of all of it thus far?
I know it's been a wild ride. There's been leads left, right, and center, but there has never been either player just jumping out to some crazy lead and leaving the other guy far behind. It's been a very close match. It feels like as soon as one of these players gets a win, their opponent comes storming right back with a win the next game. So you don't get to see anything like a blowout. Some people thought maybe, international master versus national master. Blowout in the 5-minute portion, not at all. What we're seeing here is a very close match, and Levy's going to need to make some adjustments if he wants to take this match home. I think he's probably still the favorite, and after a tumultuous 5-minute portion, I don't think he's going to be too upset being tied. But James Canty, on the other hand, he's probably feeling himself, and he's reminding people that he came to play. And for those, for the doubters, for the Canty doubters out there, he is showing them why he's in this tournament.
Yeah, nobody should be doubting him anymore, especially after that performance. Tied 3.5, 3.5. Amon, you and I were talking before the show when we looked up his stats. He actually performs quite well against title players. I mean, against IMs, I think it was something like 145 wins to 170 losses in his blitz history on Chess.com. So he can score victories over these players, and today he's proving just that.
Yeah, it's a very impressive stat line. Someone at the national master level to be basically have a slightly losing record against IMs and even grandmasters is insane. That's super impressive. And I think some of the chess that he's shown today is a tribute to that. So here we go with looks like the Scandi. We're back to this Canty against Rozman. Do you like the idea from, I guess, either player to go back in this opening?
I always prefer the white side of the positions against the Scandinavian. John Bartholomew, I hope you're watching because hashtag Team Scandi. We'll see if it lasts. But right now, Levy goes back to it. He did win the game with the Scandinavian. It was a wild affair where both sides had chances. But right now, I mean, I just like the pawns C4 and D4. There's ease of access for white's pieces. Development comes naturally. I have to prefer Canty's position.
Well, I was going to ask you, and he played it before I could get to the question. Do you like his take with C5 on the position? Because this is a very unique way of playing. You like this pawns on C4 and D4, but Canty really seems to want to play this position every single time with C5, getting bishop F4 for his bishop, getting on that diagonal, hitting the C pawn, and it does give up that square on D5. Do you think it worked out last time? Like he's repeating it as if it was he was happy with it.
Kind of feels like James gained a tempo, though, because that knight was on c6 and the pawn was on a7 for the time being. So doesn't it feel like James is just tempo ahead? And the knight d5 doesn't work anymore because you just take on d5 and win the c7 pawn, and your d4 pawn doesn't hang.
And that might be just a small thing that he may have checked in the break and said, look, I kind of like my position last time, but why don't I just do the same thing up tempo now? I mean, I'm going to need some convincing here, Robert. Why can't I take that pawn on c7?
Yeah, explain that to me. I was going to ask you the same question. Bishop takes c7.
I got you. I asked you first.
That's a free pawn. And then just play bishop anywhere, and bishop h2 was the choice. You're just up a pawn here.
That's what it looks like. I mean, no doubt there's going to be some pressure, and you can see like that d pawn is going to be targeted by Levy, but that's the exact same way that the previous game worked, except there was a pawn on c7.
Right, and you made this point when that pawn was on c7. If black moves the knight from f6, in comes the knight to e4, and then to the d6 square. So this looks really bad for Levy, who's just down a pawn. And how is he going to drum up compensation? I don't see it. I get that the d4 pawn looks like it's under attack, but you really are just down a pawn.
Yeah, and the move knight, like I think he's probably going to take this. Maybe just go knight e5. He goes knight e4. He wants that d6 square. But basically, if the queens get traded, the only trick I can see maybe happening in this position is some sort of pin on the d file with bishop takes c5 with a loose rook there after queen exchange on e2. But I'm reaching here, Robert. Just trying to find some ideas in Levy's position.
And I mean, look at this queen on e4. The knight can't move from d5. You drop b7. One idea for James going forward is knight e5, knight to c4. I think, okay, so he plays b6, which invites pawn takes pawn. But maybe after knight takes, he says, all right, you've an isolated d pawn. Trading off some of the queen side material is beneficial. But there could be a queen b7 at the end of that.
Yeah, queen b7. I mean, let's be clear. That's a pawn. I think he's got to go back to d5. But it's so Canty in this match to take all the pawns that he's offered. So he's going to do that. I mean, this is obvious.
Also, there's knight d5, rook e5, rook takes d5, and then you win the bishop on e7. That's happening.
Oh,
right now. He found it.
no.
Look at him. Look at this guy go.
Look at that boy. Oh, man, that's very impressive. He's not settling for the pawn.
He's incredible right now. The shape that he is in this match really is something.
Yep. Super impressive. So he's got 2 pieces for the rook. Definitely favors Canty. And don't forget, he's even got an extra pawn that he took a while ago. So he's doing very well here. And Levy is going to need a miracle to get back in this game.
And queen d3 would hope to be that miracle. But the thing is, it wouldn't have worked out. You're trying to get a back rank checkmate. White would have thrown in queen takes e8 check first and distracted the rook from the c file. So here, just rook f1, good move. This knight can come into e5. The d5 pawn is hanging. Just move your bishop away to give the king some space. And this should be a very easy conversion, honestly, for James Canty.
And don't forget about this bishop. A lot of people forget that it controls the b8 square. It's just so far away. But if white, gets attacked rook d8, he can go queen b7, hitting both pawns, keeping a watch on his b2 pawn, and it can't be kicked away on c7 or on b8. So it's very safe on b7 there.
For sure. So this is, I don't even, now knight e5 should just win f7.
Bishop g3, queen takes f1.
Oh, that is so nasty. Queen
That's
takes
what
f1.
he wants. That's what he wants.
Yeah, knight e5 closes the e file. So queen f1,
yeah.
I just take, and my king can run to e2. f7 is currently hanging, so...
Very, very good play by Canty. It feels like right when he needs to be accurate, he pauses. He's not playing too instinctive. Like bishop g3, a lot of people might whip out that move like, oh yeah, that gets my king the h2 square. I'm safe. Not at all.
No. And now just move the queen away somewhere, anywhere. Queen d7 back because the knight can't be captured as the rook on c8 needs that rook on e8's defense.
Yep.
Okay, queen h5 also great move for sure.
Knight f7 to d6 is the current threat. Knight g6 is always on the cards. And he goes back to g8. Happy with a draw is Levy in this position. As you can see that eval bar, it's practically going for a touchdown, trying to touch the 8th rank.
And I think that bishop g3 is just the move that you need here to make sure your king never gets in any danger. He does with queen f7. He probably wants, goes queen f5 and wanted a different square for the queen. And at long last, he can say, okay, I can breathe now. I have the 2 minor pieces for the rook. I also have that extra pawn. My king is safer. I'm up 30 seconds. Everything's going right for Canty in this game.
I think he might just go king g8 back. Canty needs bishop g3, and I think Levy needs to go king g8 here.
So there's rook f8. Watch out for it. Queen takes f2 check. Watch out for that kind of back rank checkmate.
Oh, that's so tricky from Levy. And I think Canty, once again, looks like he's taking his time. If he doesn't spot that, that could be a nasty puzzle rush win.
But I think he has to spot it because the only move that it would lose is queen g4, for example. So that, okay, it was knight f7. Oh, smothered checkmate attempt. That was,
wow.
That was clever.
And he can take a queen trade here, and I think he probably should just for the simplicity of the position. He might look for more, but that's already enough. He can play knight h6 first, take the queen at any point.
I don't like how he's spending his time here, though. He's proven to struggle in time trouble. So he goes knight g5 check, protects his queen, and the queen trade is happening. Levy trades him, and the knight's coming to d4, and that's a nice square for that knight. Bishop to e5 next.
Okay, everything looks controlled. Bishop f4 to e3, or bishop e5 and f4. And he's got the setup here. Levy's in trouble. Everything protects everything here.
It's the perfect configuration of pieces. Rook c7 coming. Knight f5 can be played to pile up. Oh, this is just, I mean, you couldn't ask for a better situation for
clinical. He gets that move off like at the buzzer.
And it's not going to help, right? Bishop
Bishop
it has to be
g7.
Checkmate.
Yeah, that king is running up to h4, and it's actually going to be king h5, king g6 looks the most convincing.
Yeah.
Nice.
And there has to be a checkmate here. Rook e7, bishop f6 he plays. All right, the king is going to have to run to c8. Oh, rook e6, and then just
Rook
trade
e6.
rows. Rook e6. Okay.
Rook e6, bishop d8.
Wait. Oh, the rook's protected on e3.
Yeah, it's protected.
I was like, oh no. But okay.
He
James
pre-moves g takes h5. He knows what's up. He knows what's up.
Oh my gosh, James Canty up.
Can we talk
4.5,
about James
3.5.
Canty for a second? Like, what are we seeing here? This is an insane performance from what I think it's fair to say a lot of people are going to call him the underdog on paper. I'm in that group as well. This is really impressive by Canty. And did he look at this as well? Is he changing this from e5? I thought e5 was good for him. He says, no, I've looked at this maybe in the break. e6 is better.
And he plays e6, and Levy did that thing where you pause because you don't expect the move, but you don't want to let your opponent know that, right? So you pause for a second and then make a pretty quick response anyway. But James is the one switching it up. He's the one with the lead. He's the one who's honestly, to my eyes, he's kind of been playing the better chess today. So he should be confident, but you need to settle down. Both players need to settle down because Levy, at the end of the day, he's the international master. He, throughout his history, has been the stronger player between the two. He, of course, can catch up, and he's proven, especially as we get to the quicker time controls, that in time trouble, he has been the stronger player. So I think both sides, they can take their pluses thus far and not get ahead of ourselves because there's a long match ahead.
There certainly is. And I think it's fair to say, correct me if I'm wrong, we haven't seen a lead in this match of more than 1 point. So if this game swings in Canty's direction, that could be the first sort of sizable lead that that Levy is going to have to deal with.
Yeah, and that's tough on the emotions. And we talked about this from the top of the show, is that when you are the favorite, there is pressure on you, whether you want it to be there or not. Like, people expect you to win. You expect yourself to win. You're not playing the kind of casual, comfortable chess you would if you're just playing someone who's at your level or even stronger than you are. So I think Canty has been thriving in this environment. And right now, even on the clock, I do like White's pawn structure, and d6 especially. That's going to be a thorn in black side.
Bishop d3.
Oh, the queen gets trapped.
I guess there's bishop c3 check. Can't forget that move inserted, but I think it's still good for White there.
Yeah. And bishop d8, that seems smart. The bishop come to a5 with check. The queen is the f6 square or the e6 square in the event of bishop to d3. The king on e1 is kind of safe, but as this game continues, I could see it getting in some trouble.
Yeah, and I don't think that Levy's upset playing king f2. Like, if bishop a5 happens, it might be in his plans to play king f2 without the check. So I think he's okay with that.
And look at knight b4. That's threatening knight c2 check. So you probably have to move your king away. Otherwise, you play rook h2, but I don't like the look of rook h2.
Yeah, rook c1, king f2, both look pretty reasonable. The knight, if it gets kicked out eventually by a3, always has the c6 square, so it's going to reroute back to the center of the board.
Yeah, that's the one really bad thing about playing d6. Well, it just keeps that bishop on c8 locked in. It can't. Black can't play d6. You give up the c6 square and the diagonal, because so b6 followed by bishop b7, maybe even b5 if you want to rush it. But I don't love the look of b5, as c5 also becomes weak after that.
Yeah, b5 very committal for sure. That's a move that we've seen from Levy in the other opening that we've seen a lot of today in the Caro-Kann. But in this position, it looks like a bit of a reach, and I think we'll see king f2 almost immediately. There it is.
Yeah, and I wonder if James wants to play b6 but didn't like the look of his bishop on d8. So if he plays b6 now, at least his bishop is over here on a5, quote unquote active. It's not really doing anything.
Definitely. Yep, knight e2, just developing here for Levy. I mean, a3 is always there to kick the knight back, but he's probably saying, look, like, I don't really need to do that if I don't have to. g5, now that the rook is protected on h1, you can't take that pawn. White will play h takes g5, and even if you throw in rook h1, probably you can play g takes f6 and f takes g7, which would be a crazy line.
You know, just as I was saying that Canty was playing the better chess today, this is a great game by Levy thus far. It seems like he's just in charge from the very start. And this queen on f5, that's a queen that's in trouble. Knight g3 comes to mind. Let's kick that queen with a tempo. Plays e4, similar. Let's kick the queen. Ooh,
yeah,
this is
e4. Where does this queen go, by the way? Yeah, h5. I mean, we've seen that queen on h7 before, but I'm not
Bishop
sure
takes
she's
f7
happy
check.
to be there.
The queen gets trapped.
Over.
Bishop f7
yeah,
g6.
he sees that in a heartbeat. And
boom.
By the way, the queen is trapped regardless of if you take that or not. So king f8. Oh man, this is just gruesome. And that's a KO, as they say.
Yeah, it's about resign time. And if you're James, you probably want more games in the longer time controls. So
Yeah.
yeah, that resignation.
Very, very
makes
nice
sense.
there. He basically got into a position that I think after he played d6, don't know if it was the best move, but I like the idea of d6 cramping the position and taking it into I guess a position we've never seen before in the match.
And as much fun as I make of the French defense, which is what Levy is playing, I think it's a very good choice for him to not keep going into these Scandinavians or these Caraccans where James has proven to get good positions. So look at this, a quick castle queenside. Watch out for the move d4 to d5. That can be a problem for black in many of these positions, especially with your king still in the center. So this is already a fascinating looking position, but Canty seemingly prepared based on how quickly he's played.
Yeah, both of these guys seem to know what's going on. The eval bar were right in the middle. And I mean, white always has some slight advantage here. Often you bring the knight back to c3 in these lines and maybe go for a quick d5 move. But I'm wondering what, after, because he put the bishop on d5, like after knight c3, is he almost planning to go like c6? Like I'm wondering what his intentions are there.
Yeah, he probably would have played c6 and said, you'll take my bishop. We'll have opposite colored bishops, but at least my pawn structure looks better. And so Canty just says, I'm going to slide my king over to b1, and now you have to find some moves. So c6 was played, even though the bishop's not under attack. Knight c3 is possible pretty much whenever, so there's no rush to play it.
Yeah.
But what is the plan here? And what is the plan for both sides, honestly?
Well, it'd be nice to kick the bishop out, like b3, c4 always comes to mind, but b3 is kind of well met by b4, and you can never play c4 without dealing with en passant there. So it's hard to kick that bishop out. Hey, he might need to just bring that knight back anyway, and he does. So I think Levy is already kind of happy with the opening, the way this knight is just bouncing around.
Yeah, and black is going to play knight d7, knight b6, try to bring that knight into the attack. So I would agree with that. I think that black is much more comfortable with the position that you have now versus some of the other ones you can get in this variation of the French. And if I am James, I'm probably going to take this bishop and then move my knight. And I want to get my bishop to h5. It's a common plan against this pawn structure because the f7 square can be a bit of a nuisance to deal with.
Yeah, like if black ever wants to castle queenside, suddenly bishop h5, not only can you not advance that pawn, but that pawn on f7, how do you defend it with the pieces you have? You have to stick a rook on f8 and basically leave it there the whole game.
Yeah, and well, James doing the sensible thing, bringing his pieces towards the center. He's done that all match. He is slightly ahead in the clock, but about level on time thus far. And well, for Levy, it's decision time. Do you play knight to b6? Do you castle queenside, which is not unsafe for the king, but we did mention that f7 pawn. That's one that I would try to go after if I were James Canty.
Not the worst thing. There's also bishop b4, which puts pressure on the knight, pins it, and I mean, if you could take it, obviously a2 would be hanging.
Right.
So he does go knight b6.
I like your idea with knight d2. I mean, we were talking about the bishop getting to h5, but the knight could also get to b3. He goes knight h4. That has to be the wrong side of the board.
I mean, you see what he's looking at, right? Like he sees these knight f5 tricks, and with his rook on e1, I think he was kind of setting that up for a few moves, but it does seem like it shouldn't work. And black's attack is actually the more dangerous one.
Yeah, bishop b4, he played it, and you have to play a3 now because bishop takes c3, followed by queen takes a2 check is a deadly threat. So you're getting a bad pawn structure.
Oof. Knight a4 at the end as well.
Wait, knight d5?
Well, I mean, there's no queen move here that attacks anything relevant, I think. So that is...
Yeah, and if queen c1, can you play knight c3 check? Does that work? Probably not.
Knight c3 takes a3.
A3 just barely saves the day.
King a2, yeah. But, I mean, no harm, no foul taking that material.
But you know what's interesting about this is that white's position does start to feel safer despite being down the material. So you give up material. You're unhappy about that. Levy's position for sure is better. But look at the clock situation. So Levy is spending his time here, whereas we're talking about you can take a clean exchange with bishop takes e1. He's trying to figure out the tactics, and maybe he will play knight c3 check because that was my first instinct as well. I think I can just go for checkmate instead of the material.
Yeah, he might even be looking at like bishop c3 or just some wild moves. Like there's so many things to consider here. But at the end of the day, look at how much time he's spent, and he has gone for it. A3 has to be on the board. The only move to stop queen to b4 check.
And then a3, if black plays b4, there's bishop c4, king a2, as you were mentioning. I I don't know if there's
This
enough
is going to
here.
get crazy. And remember, he used all his time to do this. So if it doesn't work out, he could be in big trouble here.
But I see the evaluation bar drop like crazy.
And I don't know
Oh,
why,
I know
honestly.
why. Queen
Oh,
d5
queen
check
d5.
first. Yeah.
Yes. Queen d5 was huge, but now it's transposed back into the other line with bishop e3. This is not clear at all.
This is actually just think not good for black because now
Yeah.
actually the king on a2 is safe because that pawn a3 is the shield, it's an umbrella pawn, and now the material is such 2 minor pieces for the rook that a3 pawn will
No,
fall later in
this
this
is
game.
not good.
No,
This
it's
is
not at
not
all.
good. He's going to run that a pawn, a5, a4. That's what he wants to do. But Canty is the one getting his pieces involved here.
And look at the clock situation. 5.6 seconds left for Levy and
What a
plenty of
move.
time for James. Queen e7 checkmate if you take the rook. So
I love that move, queen a3.
and he can just take on a4. No, he takes the bishop on a4. Yeah, I was saying
Wow, brave move.
Well, 2 minor pieces better than a rook.
Yep. Knight e3 or knight g3, bishop back to b3, bring the king back in the center. I think Canty can take that pawn as well.
Don't get mated. d5.
Yeah, that's what to worry about.
So d5.
d5 looks like a great move played by Canty. He finds those moves when he needs to.
And 1.7 seconds. Levy's barely getting some of these moves off, but he's really proven like he can play these bullet scrambles.
Yeah, bishop b5 takes on d5. Careful.
Tactics available. And Canty has plenty of time. So he knows he's winning. He just needs to d6 now. Now play d6 for sure.
Yeah. And if rook d4 takes, knight takes f5, d3 looks a little bit tricky still. He's probably considering what the repercussions are. Should be winning for white. He's got 2 connected pawns. The knight's there as well.
Yep, and d7 first. That way the bishop can't be captured as your queen. Play bishop knight d5 check. Knight d5 wins the rook.
Yeah, knight d5 wins the game. Bishop f3 or bishop a4. And the accuracy from Canty when he needed it there, starting with queen a3, queen c1 takes a3, and it is now 5.5 to 4.5. So right after a crush from Levy Rozman, he traps Canty's queen, and arguably the most decisive most decisive game of this match. Canty comes right back and says, "Oh no, you're not getting on a streak here against me."
And look at this. Levy goes for James didn't play knight e4 like he has been. Instead, he plays queen to b6. So James did not like that previous game. He switches the opening up, but I tend to like these positions from the white side. But what James is trying to do is just lock the board down and say, I'm going to hold a passive worse position. You have to prove that you can win. I'm ahead on the scoreboard.
Yeah, and I feel like we've almost seen this position without the b2 pawn. So Levy's got to be happy.
Yeah, right. He gets to keep even material, and now moves like b4 are on the docket for white. h5.
Very interesting. I'm not sure. Yeah, and you mentioned b4. It's out there, and if b takes c5 happens, I mean, you got to move the queen first of all. But after bc5, again, it's like there goes the b pawn. So basically, white's missing the b pawn that he's missed in every single game they played this, but black's suddenly missing a d pawn.
Yeah, this is sort of strange to me, I would say. James has been playing very well, and this game doesn't quite make sense because he didn't like what he was getting. There's something about it that was uncomfortable. He did get crushed in that previous game. It was Levy's best game of the match. But then he goes to this, which is just pretty clearly objectively bad for black.
Yeah, white, you can see the eval bar, plus 2.5. And let me tell you guys, white's not up anything material-wise. 2.5 evaluation, that's almost like a knight or a bishop. Being up a knight without actually being up a knight means your position is really, really good.
Yeah, although that can mislead people to think, especially if you're newer to chess, oh, well, white's completely winning. Well, prove it, right? You're not even up a single piece. It's not actually clear how you win this game, but we can tell you one idea for white is knight d2, knight c4, put that knight on that great square where it attacks the bishop, it attacks the center. c5 is weak, e5 is weak. White can play pawn to f4 to explode the position with the king sitting on f8. This is really, really bad.
Yeah, I think after knight d2, knight c4, the nasty thing is you follow up with a5 and then even play knight a4 after that. And with the knight pressuring the d6 bishop and the knight on a4 pressuring the c5 pawn, there's no b6 to stabilize. And I think things just fall apart. Not to mention that bishop on c8, it's got nothing to do. After black plays g5, you can always meet it with f3 and just lock everything down.
I mean, look at the bishop on b8, bishop on c8, rook on a8. They have not come to play this game. And black is trying desperately to play g5, g4. So I would not have even allowed that, probably. I would have put my own bishop on g5 to stop the pawn from getting there. But where's the attack? It seems like you're trying to wish an attack into existence, but you're not actually getting one.
No, this is tough. After D6, I mean, just look at those three pieces, Robert. C8, B8, A8. Those are the guys that come into the basketball gym with their duffel bag to play pickup ball, but are too shy to ask to play or something. I mean, those poor guys. Oh, knight E8 as well. Oh, there's a whole bench of them.
And more coming. You know, it's already there are 15 people, and they're switching out teams. More of them. Come on, bring your friends. And yeah,
Brutal.
this is bad. I mean,
May
bad
as well
doesn't
just
even-
get that knight to H8 somehow for style points. I'm willing to give you like 0.2 of a point if you can make that happen, you know?
Oh gosh. Yeah, the reinforcements are here. This hurts.
I will point out, Robert, I think this is the first game, just positionally speaking, where I think I'd like to point out just the difference in title. I think this is Levy showing his IM title in a positional format. There's been so many tactical games between these guys, but start to finish from this game right here, Levy is showing some really, really good chess.
And it's the second game in a row with the white pieces that Levy has been able to just kind of squish all of James's chances from the start of the game. So there's something in this Trapowski attack that James struggles with. And I'm sure we're going to get a break relatively soon, and he will need that break to study this opening.
Ooh, E5 falling. I mean, this is just, there's no attack happening here. Up a minute, let's not forget, it's not like Levy is, playing all these moves and then he's down on time again. No, he's up a minute, he's crushing on the board.
He certainly is. And this is our final game before we take a break. It's a halfway point in this time control. And I think it comes at a great time for James and for Levy. You're like, well, now I'm feeling it. Like, this is the chess that I've been playing my whole life. It hasn't necessarily shown throughout the earlier stages of today, but this is Gotham chess at its finest.
Absolutely. King H1, just taking that extra moment. I mean, you want to take this knight, but there follows bishop takes H3. So just getting out of trouble, and James plays bishop takes H3. This is what we call desperation, Robert. There's no other way to describe it. This does not work, but his position was drawing dead, so he's just thrown it out there.
And he's hoping that after G takes H3, Queen C8, Levy forgets that his D pawn can move, because D7 just cuts off that queen from the attack. But what you need to do is get your queen over there. So, hey, well, now Queen C8 becomes more of a threat. So keep an eye on that.
D6 falls with check, though. So there's just like
Queen takes D6
D1.
Right now is good. Queen D6, Bishop C5.
Yeah.
Just would have.
Yep. That would have been a
out.
nice little lights out maneuver there. It only wins a pawn, but it simplifies the game. Exactly. I think Rook D1 is just crushing here.
Yep. And he's now closed down any hope for a kingside attack. He is up a full piece. Levy Rozman, Gotham Chess, is going to take this one for sure.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind. He's got this game. King's on H1. It's out of danger. I mean, James just doesn't have enough pieces to contribute to a meaningful attack here. And F3 says, yeah, if you even thought about sacking on G4, it's not happening.
No. And, even if you do it, I have the reinforcements I need.
Knight E4. He just says no. Rook B6, and I think we might see resigns here.
Yeah, it's about that time, isn't it? Just take on C6, Rook F6 check, and then take the Rook on D2.
Rook takes C7 if you want some extra points. Rook F6 if you want even more extra points.
And just the Rook goes bye-bye and resign.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a demolition. That really was a one-sided affair, and Levy flexed on James. And I think you're right, Aman, that he used his wealth of experience, right? He has that IM title. He has played so much great chess. He studied the game very thoroughly. Yeah. He just squeezed the life out of James's position.
Yeah, you said it well. There's no other way to put it. Basically, the last two games that we've seen from Levy have been crushes, and they've been with the white pieces. So James is going to have to go into this break and really evaluate what's been going wrong in those games, because we haven't seen that the whole match. So all of a sudden, what's maybe concerning for James Canty III is that when he's losing games with the black pieces, they're happening really quickly, and he's kind of getting crushed. So he's going to have to go reevaluate. Levy, on the other hand, once he stabilizes with the black pieces, I mean, we could see a blow-up match with the way he's been playing with white.
For sure. If I'm James, all I'm doing in this short break is looking at the black side of this Trapowski attack, just trying to figure out a line that makes me feel more confident, because right now it is not working out. But Amon and I are going to take a break. We will return shortly with more coverage of this Gotham Canty I'm Not GM Speeches Championship match. And as we return, getting ready for more 3 minute plus 1 second increment time control games, we have to enjoy that the match is tied up 5.5, 5.5. For those of you who root for the underdogs, James Canty III came to play. And Aman, what do you think going forward here after James just suffered a pretty brutal defeat to Levy Rozman?
I think that James is probably happy to have that break. The last two games that he had the black pieces in, let's say it bluntly, he got crushed. And we haven't seen that in this match so far. So I think he's really happy that he gets to take time to regroup, check those games over maybe, and say, look, what went wrong in those games that wasn't happening the rest of the match? So I think he wanted that break. And Levy, probably a little bit upset. He was just starting to find his rhythm, his momentum. He just got a crushing win. And all of a sudden, the guys are on break. So we're going to come back from this break, and we'll have to see how it affects the players. But I think that Canty was happy to just, revamp after that last game.
Yeah, he gets to look over his openings, both with the black color, where he struggled against the Trapowski attack, and then with the white pieces, he now needs to figure out, is Levy going to continue playing the French? Is he going to go back to that Caro-Kann and we'll get the Panov again? Will he go for the Scandinavian, which we saw a couple of times? And for Levy, he can say, hey, I've been playing better chess as the match has gone on. That should bode well for my chances in the bullet. And, well, we have the answer. Scandinavian it is.
Yep, and once again, knight f6, and we're going to see this line repeated. I don't think that, Levy's gotten some results in this line, but I don't think Canty can be too upset. He played a crushing game last time, but Levy has probably also looked at that move order.
Yeah, and well, we see that e6. Now James is thinking he's down 10 seconds. Why? We haven't really seen him spend so much time, and he's had this position before. So I wonder what's happening that caused him a moment of pause there.
And Levy goes bishop b4, and I think that what's been happening is that Canty is like, he's playing this position again, and he's kind of pausing because he's like, wait a minute, why is Levy, why does he want to go for this again? These have been good positions for me. And he's maybe just pausing and thinking, should I change things up? Because maybe he looked at this in the break. In the end, he goes for c4, and bishop b4 check is kind of the new idea by Levy instead of bishop d6.
And he takes, which gives white these double pawns, but the semi-open b file to work with. Only white has a dark square bishop, which can be useful in f4 or g5 later in the game. And one of the big questions, as always, do you just castle and give up the c3 pawn? I would.
I would say yes, yeah. I wouldn't spend much time on it. I would castle. Canty has done that. I personally don't think Levy is going to take that pawn, but we'll see. He could have a different strategy coming in.
No, he castles. It's just too risky. You take on c3, you do win a pawn for the time being, but white, his moves like bishop b2 and pawn d5, and the board opens up. It was black's king that would be in danger. So instead, he simply castles. Rook to b1's a good move, and that rook can slide up to b5 and then swing to the king side, which is probably why Levy protected b7 with the queen.
Yep. Yeah, if you play b6, then basically you give this exact same move, but with a tempo.
Right. And, well, where is Levy going to develop that knight? I would want, at first glance, I would have wanted to play knight b to d7, knight to b6. But with that rook on b5, I'm like, well, what am I really gaining from this maneuver?
Yeah, and a knight on b6, even if you play queen a4 to somehow attack that pawn, there's always c5, and that pawn on b7 ends up hanging. So Canty already off to, I would say, a good start. He's got this rook b5 idea, and careful on that king side, because there could be a lot of firepower. Knight e5 to g4, and as you mentioned, Robert, that rook swinging over could be the theme of this game.
Yeah, it's a dangerous position, but h6 play, just saying no rook to g5, no bishop to g5. You would like to put your pawn on g5 if you're white, but g4 seems to hang a pawn on the square there, so I don't think you can get away with it. But it gives you a hook, is my essential point.
Right. Lots of moves for white here. Rook e1, bishop f4, even knight e5. They all look very reasonable. H6, I think, is important to stop that rook from swinging over to g5. But one of the reasons that white's attack could be so successful in this game is that queen on a6 so far away from the king. It can't really get over to help with defense, as James is thinking a lot here, Robert.
Actually, what you just said inspired me. G4 it is. You take me on g4. I'll play h3, king h2 or h1, rook g1, and maybe instead of h3, just king h1 and rook g1 and just go for the attack. Whoa!
Talk about going for the attack here. Like, what's the follow-up? Is he playing queen e5 to g3 with some knight sacrifice. Like, what's on the cards here? Queen e3, and after king there, is it going to be knight g5 takes, rook takes with mate threat?
Oh my goodness, that seems to be what he's going for. And if you start with king g7, maybe there's rook g5 check, where
Rook
you give up
g5.
your rook and then your queen slithers in there and wins the knight on f6, and that king is in real danger on the h
Yep.
file.
Yep, and keep in mind that the initial sacrifice, the computer is probably like, whoa, 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 whoa. And now it's creeping back to equal. When you sacrifice a piece and you're attacking the king and it's equal, you've done something right.
100%. And king g7 was in fact played. Moves like knight e5 are tempting, as in addition to that rook g5 check. Rook
Yep.
g5, king h7. Where's the crushing factor? Because if you don't find something concrete, you have given up a piece for just one pawn.
Yep, absolutely. Rook g5, takes, king h8.
Take on f6. At least a draw there.
Yeah, and if king h7, okay, he goes for this, and I think this is absolutely correct. What an attack so far. 34 seconds, he just punches it in. There's +1 second increment, but if Levy gets low on time here, defending a crazy attack like this is not what you want to be doing.
Not at all. And actually, maybe after king h7, you just play rook g3, with the idea being you're going to play rook h3 next. And there really is an attack here. Knight e5 comes to mind, queen d3 check. You have so many different options. And playing against this attack, it's too scary, especially in a blitz game.
Absolutely agree. I feel like the eval bar is like, yeah, it's a draw, guys. Go figure it out. I'm taking the day off. Like I can't. I've done enough swinging in this match. Like, there's no way I can calculate all this.
No, and that's the thing about this is this happens to grandmasters plenty, right? There are openings played, and then someone makes a sacrifice because you didn't leave your engine going for long enough. It doesn't see that deeply, and that sacrifice works out even though you thought it wouldn't. So I think here, rook g3 to start makes sense. And one important point to note is if black plays rook g and takes on g3, white will take with the f pawn to open up the f file, another avenue of attack.
Yeah, rook g3 and like knight e5, queen e5. He wants to take on f6, but hello, knight d7. I think he forgot that.
Oof.
He's going to go queen g3 and try to take, but now it's not working for sure.
No.
He forgot knight d7, and this could be a win for Levy. A big defense.
And we'll see, because the king is still really unsafe. He plays rook g. That is a smart move. He doesn't have to think of the tactics. 2 pawns for the piece, but that's not enough here.
No. Queen c6, threatening queen f3, has to be queen f4.
And queen takes c4. Rook g4 also looks good. And Levy down to 7.8 seconds, but 7.9 I should say, and James near the same. So anything can happen in the time scramble, but Levy is just up material.
He's up material, yeah. h3 by white is probably a move you want to throw in, just necessary.
For sure.
Well, check that time. Levy's time is taken down. h4 threatens h5.
Oh, I don't really like h5 for black because that pawn's on a loose square, but still, black, of course, is doing very well here.
Queen f3 hits f7 as well.
Yeah. And take on f7? Uh-oh.
Oh, but then rook g7, and d1 is hanging.
Wow, that's crazy. Okay. Oh, he's barely getting the moves up. Queen f3, and it's a draw of queen g4. So he plays rook e1.
Oh, but getting the king to g7 is huge for Levy. It might not look like much, but that knight is going to sneak into f4. And the time is incredible here.
Rook takes g2 check. Oh, rook g3 was hanging with the queen on b6.
King h2, I like that move for white. Queen f3, hitting the pawn.
Yep. And the rook's on e4. Oh, queen takes h5. That's a big pawn to lose, because now if the rook moves...
Okay, takes queen f3. Oh, f2 is hanging, and then queen f5.
Oh, he didn't take it.
He mouse slip maybe.
No, but he's going to take it now. I guess it didn't matter. He is a piece that 95 too powerful.
Oh my goodness.
If I'm James, I'm resigning. I want more 3-minute
looked like a mouse slip.
Yeah, it kind of did, right? Stop one move short. One square short, I should say. Queen takes b7?
Yeah, hang on. I would play this out. Check and don't check.
Oh, queen a8, take on a7 with check. He had to go queen f8.
Okay, nicely done.
Yeah.
Nicely done. Queen f2 is the threat.
Queen f2 check would have won here too.
Oh my goodness, check again.
Queen d5 check would have traded queens.
Oh, he blundered the queen.
Yeah, he just laughed about it kind of. He's like,
it's too much to ask. Wow. That felt like a bullet game because we spent so much time at the 3 seconds apiece portion. That was insane.
That was extremely wild. And James goes for bishop takes h6, which was completely unnecessary, but still dazzling. And
Yep.
I don't know if it was truly justified, but he went with it and he paid the price.
And Levy looks like he's playing this game, like his hand is playing this game, but his brain is still in the last game. He's just like, what the hell just happened there?
Well, his position's bad with white on move 7, right? Knight d5
Yeah.
was played. If the bishop goes this way, knight e3 comes to mind, or just take on
already.
e5 first. And yeah, this feels like there's too many loose squares in white's position to be truly comfortable. Just take him by e6. That's what he's going to do. This is bad.
This is bad. I like knight e3. I would take that bishop.
That was my first instinct. But then I was like, wait, maybe I'll just be a little calmer. He says no.
Yeah. No, I think that e6 is the better move, maybe, but I just can't refuse.
Just knight takes g3. There's no mate. Knight takes g3.
Levy throwing in that in-between move, but hang on. He's just thinking about it now, and he knows that he missed that. Oh, no.
Yeah, his reaction there was like, what am I doing?
He wanted the brilliancy prize. I'm just going to show quickly what Levy wanted. Queen g6 checkmate, hello, but doesn't work like that. Knight takes g3, and he's down. Was it 2 pieces, Robert?
Yeah, he could take on d7, but that just gets 1 piece back and trades queens, and the black king is safe. So what's interesting about that moment right there is I didn't really like white's position anyway, but it felt like what James had done in the previous game, kind of like an unnecessary tactical idea, and it backfired more immediately for Levy than it did for James, but still, that was clearly an oversight.
Don't play knight e5 or knight c5 here, Robert. I guess knight e5 is okay.
Yeah.
Knight c5 takes on f7 and you lose your queen.
You're right. So he plays knight h5, bringing the knight back into the game. He's up 2 pieces right now.
Yeah, it's just crazy. You have to take on d7, unfortunately. It's just, you must do that.
What about queen d5 here?
Queen d5. Yeah, that's a funny one. Queen d5. I like it. I like queen d5.
I think queen d5, you had to play knight e5 and sacrifice your knight that way. And you're winning.
Yeah,
but
and then just knight f6 after.
It forced you to at least find a single move there. Just play e6. James, you're up a piece.
Takes, king back or g6, all fine. The knight's going to come to f6. So a full extra, piece for Canty. He's got the 2 bishops as well. There's a rook on h3. Everything's wrong here for Levy. But, that doesn't need reiterating. It's just, can James Canty III put this game away and tie this match up again?
Well, I think Levy's doing the right thing by playing on. First of all, there's a king on f7 that could become a problem later. It's not going to. But also, Levy has been the better player in time control. This is devastating. Queen b2, queen g1.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
because queen c3, like hitting the rook and hitting that, not only is there bishop b4 winning the queen, but there's bishop g7. There's queen takes check on g1. There's just nothing works here.
Yeah, queen takes b2. He's going to play on, though, because he wants to get to the bullet portion without seeing his match score go down, right? If he loses this game, or when he loses this game, because he's bad on material, he will still be tied in the match, and he is the favorite in the bullet. So I think it's smart in terms of match strategy to play on here.
Yeah, this is as over as a game gets, really. James is up on time. The evaluation is like at -14. I don't know. This is like some sort of Cleveland Browns spread or something. What are we watching here?
Hey, the Browns just won the playoff game, so don't hate on them too much.
No, I was cheering for them against the Steelers.
Yeah, they that wasn't even a game, right? The first quarter was 28-0. That was ridiculous. But this position is kind of like that, actually. After 7 moves or whatever it was, James was up a piece. So yeah, this is no good. But that queen on a1, not helping. Queen h7 check is a threat. Rook takes d7 comes to mind. So you have to be a little bit careful if you're James, and probably knight to f6 just says none of any of that for you.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a check, but h7's covered, g6 is covered. Ugh.
Yeah, queen's gonna go to c1 now.
Yeah, that queen on b2 is like, the kid in Capture the Flag who's hiding out in your territory for the whole round. You sort of forget about him.
Sure, and then it's the right moment just pounces and takes the flag.
Yeah, he just pops off and grabs the flag and starts running.
It's the hero that you need, but not the one you deserve.
So there's knight e5 check, and there's queen h7 check. We got checks threatened.
Oh, knight e5. Okay, king f8. King e8. Also, there's no checks after that.
Yeah, e8, queen h7. There's queen e5. Yeah, so
we'll check. But it does look like Levy's made progress, and he's also up on time. And we've seen James blunder in time trouble.
Yeah, like let's talk about the fact that the pieces that James is up, he hasn't moved yet, right? They are on the queen side. So it's like, it's a matter of time before that happens. And what is he setting up here? Some sort of like knight g6 or queen h7 move. He's got some hopes.
Okay, you can't play b6 next because your rook on a8 is hanging. So it's like frustrating because you're, of course, winning with the black pieces here, but you need to make moves like rook to b8. And James play the move quickly, so that's a good move to play. And the time deficit is about to be nothing. Okay, king e8, safe move.
Yeah. e6 is covered. He's just going to go back. He wants queen h7 now. That's the idea. But Canty is not having any of that. Knight g4, bishop g7. Everything looks covered.
Wow.
Queen g6 check, king f8.
It's just amazing. Right? Bishop g7.
h6.
Wait, but bishop g7, queen g6 check, and if queen f7, there's rook d8, right?
Yep, and there's knight h6.
Oh, gosh.
Knight takes h6.
Wait, this is actually a bit scary. So queen g6 check, you have to king king f8 maybe?
Yeah, I think queen g6 check. I mean, we need to see that on the board.
Whoa, c4.
That can't be it.
But it's at least causes confusion because b6 may loosen the c6 square, or b5 is played, but maybe there's a check on c6 at some point that you have to watch out for. So queen h7, queen f7 now. If there's rook f8, okay.
Canty still hasn't really established the rest of his pieces in this game, and I think he's about to.
Yeah, he got it.
Bishop d7 is huge. Now the knight on g4 is covered by the bishop on g7. Canty is, I think he's fine now.
And bishop d4 check should be sufficient. Okay, where's the mate?
Bishop b5 wins. There it is.
Oh, and that's that.
And I mean, honestly, like I'm pretty impressed that Levy took the game that far. That was really impressive. But let's not forget that game was actually just Canty taking advantage of Levy's blunder of a full piece in the opening, going for a fancy move e6.
Yep. And so the match is now tied, and now we have a French again. And it's not your everyday French, where black has double pawns, and white didn't have to give up the dark square bishop to encourage black to get those double pawns. Wait a second, queen f3 is coming if you play bishop b7, so be careful.
Yeah, I guess you can survive with like queen d7 because the knight is nowhere near.
But f6 is hanging in those lines?
Oh, yeah, f6 is hanging. So yeah, that's true.
This is weird. And Levy
bishop d7 is just not the move you want to do. And
especially
by the way, even after bishop d7, queen f3, knight e7, like bishop takes d7, you have to take with a king, f6 is hanging. That's not even clear.
No. So queen d5 played, and that protects the knight, attacks the bishop, and attacks the g2 pawn. So c4 will be met by queen takes g2, but then oh my goodness, this has to...
Wow, that would be wild. c4, queen takes g2, d5. And then queen takes h1, bishop takes c6, check.
Too much to calculate.
Yeah, I'll let them do it.
It looks, to my eyes, especially if this were a bullet game, I would be playing that so quickly. But considering it's still blitz, for James, you have so many options. You can play bishop back to e2 and then put the bishop on f3. You can
I like that. I think that is the best move, and I wouldn't be surprised to see that by Canty after some calculation here. We just don't want to see these players throwing away the game early on. Like c4, d5 could just be losing. And we've seen a number of games so far just thrown away in the opening.
Too much time being spent, though. Like, you just need to move.
Yeah, bishop e2.
I think he's going to play c4 and d5 based on how... Oh, he plays queen b3. I was like, based on the amount of time he's spending.
He wants to castle. What? No, he doesn't. What does he want to do here?
Yeah, he's going to play d5 and then castle and take on c6 and all that good stuff.
Yeah, d5 castle. Wow. So queen takes g2, d5 first or castle? Looks like d5 first.
Yeah, d5 first.
Queen takes h1 and then maybe just castle there, or bishop c6 first. All looks good.
Yeah, pretty wild position. And I saw Levy's face. He was like, first shocked. Then he's like, uh-oh. And then now he's like, okay, now that I've gone through my visceral reactions, let me actually calculate. And maybe queen takes g2 looks almost forced to me.
Yeah, queen takes b3. Keep in mind, bishop takes c6, check, intermezzo. You cannot get away with just like saying, oh, okay, this looks wild. I don't want wild. Let's trade the queens. That's not an option.
Yeah. And if you move the queen back, and so, well, why'd you allow the queen to come to b3? And if you play bishop d7, I'll just trade queens and you're stuck with this really ugly pawn structure, the double F pawns that are isolated, the D pawn. So yeah, this seems like you might have to take on g2, and Levy appropriately spending his time figuring out, is that just losing? And if not, hey, that's the move I'm going to go for.
And both players basically spent about a minute or 45 seconds apiece looking at queen b3 for James Canty III and queen takes g2 for Levy.
And bishop d7. Now this is, the thing is, we both were like, oh, we'll let the players figure it out, because it is a really complicated position. But now it's not complicated, and it's not complicated in very favorable ways for James, because look at the pawn structure.
Yeah, and I think Levy has just sort of realized, or he's willing to admit that, hey, these tactical struggles with James, they aren't necessary. Like, why don't I just take a position where the queens are off and I can try to just outplay him on the board? Because those tactical games are not always working out for him.
No, they are not. And even this position with the bad pawn structure, it's not that bad for black.
It's
because,
playable, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. You can trade off some pieces. Your rooks will just try to go to e8. Maybe one will go to g8. It's obviously better for white, but it's not so clear cut. And now f5, all right. King d2, I think, and bring the king to d3 even. Just
yeah. Yep, that definitely looks good. Even bishop f4, if you want to go for that trade, is perfectly fine here.
And important to note, there's no rook g8, because knight f6 check will fork the king and rook. So, okay, g3.
Yep.
It's one of these positions I'm on where you know that f4 for black is an idea, but you're never sure if you actually should play it.
Absolutely. I was thinking the exact same thing. It's like, you play it, and then usually as soon as you do, you regret it. And you're like, why did I just give up a pawn for nothing?
Because you're shattering white's pawn structure, but down in a pawn, but you're also giving white the g file, which is not ideal. So he does move his king to c6. I like that move, actually. And now what? Yeah,
he wants to play rook e8, but knight f6 was simply going to win the exchange there.
Rook e8, there's now knight g7. So it's...
Oh. That's hilarious. Yeah, got to watch out for all that.
Oh, knight g7.
Knight g7. Just yeah, you called it. You called it.
And it's an... Oh, he didn't see it. Wow, that's a big miss, because that was just a free pawn.
Yep. It's weird. I don't mind the move f4. I really like the idea of fixing that pawn as a weakness on f5. So now there is no f4 that we've been talking about. But as you mentioned, it's just only a bad move because knight g7 was missed. Now if you go knight g7, he's probably seen it by now, but there's knight e7 to cover.
Right. And so can you take on h7, or is f6 trapping the knight? No, you move your bishop out the way. Bishop anywhere. Bishop. Oh, actually.
Bishop f2, but then takes and bishop e7.
Yeah, there's also just king d7. So nice move though. Rook takes e3. Okay. Oh, it's too wild.
I was gonna say, rook takes e3, takes bishop takes f4,
and then rook e1, and you have king d2, and the f6 pawn is hanging, so your knight gets out. Like, what in the world?
Yeah, I think he needed to start with the rook there. I think that was important.
Yeah, because this nice move, rook h8 takes on h2 with check.
Great. King d3.
And after bishop e3, okay, king f3 now. And then you have rook e1, rook e6 check. Whoa, what? You give the f4 pawn. No, that's bad.
But he simply forgot that king g3 or king g5 hits the knight. You don't win a knight or anything there.
Yeah, he was shaking his head, and now that g pawn is going to try to roll up the board.
9 seconds. This is literally a time scramble, and chances for both sides. The eval are right in the middle, just a pin drop.
Okay, knight h4 check, king g5, then I can go back to f3. Maybe we'll get a draw in this way. Or the king actually go up the board, maybe. Whoa, takes the pawn.
Levy wants more. And he can even sack the ball, rook g2.
Okay, rook
this
f1.
Is good for black.
Only move is rook f1. Now, king somewhere. You need to get...
5.
Okay, so g6 is coming. This is scary. Yeah. Oh,
he's going to sack and take on c3, I think.
I
like the idea.
Wait, what's this, 96 is his plan? But c5? Take it.
Well,
take
only black wins this.
Yes, yes. Oh, wait, now black's definitely going to win.
Yep, it's winning for sure.
I think James really struggles in time trouble. 94.
Oh my goodness.
But
94 was winning the c pawn. Might have still been winning for black, but yeah needed to be played.
Yeah, now this is
over.
It's a win. for Levy.
Yeah.
I think this is a sign of things to come, if you ask me. Just the scrambles, pretty much every single one that's been a 50-50 has gone Levy's way.
Yeah, and that means that we are going to be heading into the break as you see Levy get up from his chair there. He is, emphatic to take the lead at the end of the portion, which means we're going to the bullet, 1-game lead for international master Levy Rozman. And I mean, what do you reflect on in that 3-minute portion if you're James Canty?
What you have to do, it's just comes down to one word: move. Because he's really been deliberating, and that's great. He's trying to play the best possible chess. But even in great positions, he then leaves himself with not enough time, and he doesn't feel confident in the scrambles. So I think what James needs to do is just play these openings that he's getting pretty decent positions out of, and just go. You are not, unless you blunder in the first 10 moves, you're not going to lose in that period of time, and you need the remaining time to be able to win when the position gets complicated.
Yeah, this is going to be a very exciting conclusion. And just as a fan and a commentator here in the booth with you, Robert, I am so happy that this match has done more than live up to expectations, because this is a very tight match. 1 game separates these guys. And unless someone gets completely blown out in the bullet portion here, this is going to be a very exciting finish.
It certainly will, and the bullet remains, but for now, we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we will have the final time control and the remainder of this I'm Not a GM Speed Chess Championship match brought to you by Chess.com. Just want to remind all of our viewers and streamers out there that Arena Kings Season 6 is underway. It started on Monday. There will be another event just 2 days from now on Friday. Get involved, have some fun, and play against some of your favorite personalities. It will be a great time. Speaking of great time, we're having a blast here as Gotham Chess takes on GM Canty. It is a lead for Gotham. Levy Rozman up 7.5, 6.5. Amon, you and I were just talking during the break. It is a lead for Levy. He's the high-rated 2 bullet players. Would you say that James has a chance, or has it gone by at this point?
I think it would be insulting at this point to not say that James has a chance. He was the underdog in Blitz, the same way that he's going to be the underdog in Bullet, but I think he has come to play on match day. He's been playing some great chess, and whenever he's lost a game, he's bounced back with a win. So, of course, Levy could come out of the gate in this Bullet portion blazing and just really take it to him and show why he's a high-rated player. But what we've seen in this match so far is James can absolutely compete. So don't count him out of this Bullet portion. He's only down a single game, Robert.
Absolutely. And you and I, during the break, we were looking up the history. And against Teddy Coleman, Levy actually lost the Bullet portion of that match despite being much higher rated. So here we are. What? What?
Knight disrespect. He says, get that Trumpowski the hell out of here.
And did you see Levy laugh? He's just like, what is this? There's no way that was on purpose, was it?
But James didn't even blink. He was like, yep, Knight G8, yep.
Now that is a power move. Just knight back to G8. And
looked at that one in the break.
Do you think that was a mouse slip of sorts? Like what just happened?
But what mouse slip?
I don't know, but nobody voluntarily goes knight back to G8.
That's wild. If he wins this first game off that is just a power statement.
I mean, James has a terrible position. He's down a couple tempi, and his position is bad. Knight F5 comes in.
Yeah, E6 was needed there. Oh, Bishop F8. We have the second piece returning home, Robert.
Oh, that's a sad move to play, but maybe it's not as terrible as you would think. E6, okay.
Knight G3 to H5, I expect.
Oh, that's pretty painful because Black needs to play like Knight B6, Bishop B7, Queen E7, and Castle Long. You definitely an A6. You don't have time to play this. So like Bishop H5 is coming.
Yeah, this is gonna hurt.
Oh, Bishop H5, Rook H7, holding on for dear life.
Needs to be, and it is.
Queen F2, something like that. Maybe Rook F2 and Rook F1. This looks very painful.
Yeah, even something slow, as you said. Rook F2, Rook F1.
Whoa.
Rook takes F7. Okay. He's got nothing to worry about. An E5 he wants?
Yeah, E5. But trade queens?
Yeah, it's reasonable.
Okay. There's some chance here. It's still great for white, of course, and we see the evaluation bar say as much. But Bishop E7?
Bishop E7 takes and then Bishop D6 or something.
Okay, so Bishop D7, I think you have to play. And after EF6, but Bishop F8.
Yes. Wow. Nicely played by Canty. He's pretty much equalized the position here, and he's up on time.
What in the world has happened in this game? Rook B8? That B file has come in so handy to James throughout this match.
Yes, absolutely. Bishop C6. That looks like the move.
There's also H5, H4 ideas if you're not careful to try to
A5, A4 as well.
A5, A4, A3. That's actually a really good plan. Here goes H5.
Yep.
Wait.
Takes G2.
Yeah, take F6.
Ooh,
okay.
Take F6 is better.
King E7. Wait, that knight's kind of trapped over there, isn't it? But now.
Knight F4. Bishop check.
Oh, Rook B2 is happening. So King D3.
Knight E6 though.
So King D3 and Knight E6 check as a response is so frustrating to deal with.
That is so tough.
Can you go Bishop E5? No, it goes King F6 back.
Knight H5 check.
Bring that King to E7. You have to. What?
Oh, Knight G6.
Knight G6, Knight E7. Oh.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
What is happening here? So you can't really trade rooks.
No, he's going to go back.
Rook B2?
Okay, rook check, rook D2.
Nice.
Keep the rooks on. You have to.
Rook B1. You just have to move. You have to play for Levy's time trouble here.
It's his own time trouble.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Oh my goodness. He needs a move. He needs a move. No. King E4 is a good one.
Rook G7.
Ooh. Check. King E3.
Just resign. Going. Just resign. Resign. I'm telling you. Okay. Levy just needs to go get checkmated.
I don't know. I would play this, but it's probably a bad idea.
Well, the thing is, I'm trying to save match clock, but you're right. There's only one pawn remaining. So if you lose that pawn, then the
Yeah,
game is suddenly a draw.
It's not insane.
No, rook g1, rook g1. Putting the rook behind the pawn was good.
Yep. Oh, he can't just keep checking you. Now I would resign it.
Yeah, it's about
now
that time.
I think I
Knight f2 check happening, and or king f2, king g1 even.
Yeah, now I would absolutely resign for the match. But I sort of get why he's playing on. Basically, he sees that one pawn. He's like, I just get that pawn off the board. It will be a draw.
I would have resigned so long ago. It's wasting a lot of match time. Yeah. And
yeah.
Oh. We both have the same exact reaction. Yeah, that's not the move.
Just a small and
honestly though, Canty after playing knight g8, which we're gonna have to ask him, that could
we
not
gotta
have
ask
been
about that.
Oh gosh. And he plays this version of the French, the Monte Carlo variation. And this is interesting because you get an isolated pawn, but you get really good activity around it.
Yeah, but I was gonna say, hang on. In bullet, you take on h3 every time. So this is like how Magnus lost to Bu Zhangzi. There's like famous attacking game where he just sacked him. It's like, what are you gonna do about it?
Wait, so does this work? Isn't White gonna play queen f3 now and just okay, queen.
So queen f3 knight there, queen g3 doesn't work. Queen h3.
Queen h3
looks playable.
Okay, he played queen g2.
There's knight d4.
Wow, this is wild. Knight f3 check is a devastating threat because queen h2 mate will follow. So you probably have to.
I think you got to grab it.
Take it,
and then bishop f4. Just give up the rook or the exchange rather. Wow,
okay.
What a move.
He covers the f3 square. Wow, that's
it covers e2.
That is a tough move to play when you don't have much time. So if c6, okay, he moves knight to f5, so never mind.
Very reasonable. So bishop d2.
Yeah, bishop d2, I like that as well. Just get the bishop out of the way. Wow, this is a wild game, and James down a lot of clock.
Yeah, James is laser focused right now, and Levy's just sipping water like it's.
He's more used to playing these bullet scrambles, so that's going to come in handy. He has been the better player between the two in the bullet so far. And okay, bishop f3. He's trying to get rid of some of the attackers, but just take on e3 a bunch of times. And f4 hangs.
Yeah, there's also bishop c5 to pin the e3. Okay, bishop
suddenly
e4.
This doesn't look as bad as it once did.
Yeah, the knight's going back like that. I mean, it's all about time at this point. I think James has done a fantastic job defending in the end.
He really has. He has all these pieces towards his king. Although f5 is a great move. Bishop c2. Yeah, knight g4. The knight comes to g3, I guess. You have to.
Yeah.
Okay, knight he didn't want to. So knight e3, pawn takes, knight g4, and then e knight moves out the way. This is such a wild position.
My goodness.
It's too cluttered. So he fixes some.
I agree with this decision. Even just like g6 or like knight g4, bishop c5, those type of moves.
Yeah, and I think that no matter what, James is going to bring his knight to either d or f4.
10 seconds apiece.
Yep. f5 is going to be hanging something like bishop e3, knight e6 kind of stuff.
Yep.
He plays e4.
That is a risky move.
Yeah, can't really get behind that.
Knight e3 minimum.
Knight e3, all right, that makes sense. Rook takes e4 now. This is opening up for both sides. And actually,
I like this for white. Oh no, we needed rook e4.
Yeah, rook e4 looked better to trade off some pieces. No, e1's hanging. Oh, it's hanging.
Yeah, that's just it. This game.
Whew.
But it is clear if he had played rook takes e4 there, Robert, that absolutely could have led to even a checkmate for white.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still trying to wrap my head around all those tactics, and that's what happens to us chess players, right? We see this and we're like, wait, what just happened? Let me remember. Did that work? And the next game is fully underway. So queen takes b2 here by Canty. You're down 3 points on the scoreboard. You just have to take the pawn and hope that you live to tell the tale.
Yeah, and let's be clear. In bullet, all the games that we've seen so far are going to work out just that little bit better for Levy, just because of the fact that the time is lower. And is he even going to castle? I think he's going king f1 and knight g5 ideas. Yeah,
because you try to open up the H file so that rook is dominating in attacking
I think this is a crush. I think this might be a crush for Levy. Bishop c3, g3, knight g5.
Yeah, I did like that move bishop f4 because at least it creates some threats and cause some confusion. But you're right, bishop c3 just to get out of it. Don't trade pieces. The queen has to go, but where does it go to? Ooh, queen e7, rook c2 to e2 with tempo.
Yeah.
Oh, rook b1 played. Okay. This suddenly isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Bishop e5, you have to. And black has an extra pawn, but white has the bishop pair and what could be a nasty attack.
Yeah, I still think king g2, rook e1, f4 it's going to be like really rough here.
Yeah,
but yeah, you gotta take this as Canty. Take that pawn and play this game out. That's how you gotta try.
So he plays knight f6, but he just gives up the pawn in the center, and now he doesn't even have extra material for his troubles.
Right.
So he's gonna have to rely on some kind of b5 at some point.
Maybe take and bishop g4, or just bishop g4 initially. I think taking is maybe a bit better, but
Levy
the idea
just
is
in
the
time.
same.
Yeah, Levy just in time to get king g2 because that bishop could sit on f3. That'd be a problem for white's coordination, but he got his king.
Bishop's almost trapped, by the way.
Yeah, it's a close call.
Takes f3. There is rook e3 as a resource.
And not only does it save the day, it actually just turns black's position into a promising one. So,
yep.
Good move, knight d7. Levy sitting and thinking. He is
Maybe
down under.
Back to e1.
Tough move to play, but I like it.
Yeah, tough move to play. I agree.
He does it. Wow, great move.
Yeah, that's a classy move there. f3 intended next with g4, h5. Mm-hmm. He's going to whip that out, I think.
Although the problem is that c4 pawn on light square, the knight and bishop can team up. So if somehow this bishop gets some open space from d7, it can apply pressure. Knight a4 happens, a6, b5, likely a follow-up.
And you called it. That's going to be on the board. And these two bishops, I mean, they're going to be dangerous in the endgame, but they're more dangerous with the queen on the board. And how about 3 seconds for Levy?
Yeah, he's had no time. So many different games in this match. And here, just take on e4, play rook on d8.
Rook d8.
Looks good.
Yep.
But he's thinking.
If you don't play rook d8, d7, rook d8 is killing with bishop d7 check.
So f6 here, and if bishop f4, g5. You kick the bishop away, you win the d6 pawn.
This is huge. Look at that time as well.
Yeah, and the knight of a4
is seconds.
And the knight a4 is a hero, protecting that c5 pawn.
Oh, but here comes Levy, and slowing down is James Canty. We've seen this before.
We have. And he put the knight in the wrong square. Knight b2 would have allowed the knight to go to d3 with check to fork the bishop if it captured on c5. So still,
this is okay for Canty. He's at least got a draw here, although
he might win this.
Yeah, he's got to put pawns on light squares.
King d5. Oh, he didn't do it. Now his nice trap.
He's gonna lose. Oh my gosh, he's gonna lose.
How?
He's lost this game. Oh, that is devastating. That might be everything right there, and he knows it. He's shaking his head. Wow.
Yeah, that's that. Wow. That's one of those games where you can't fathom how you lost. You were up a pawn in an endgame where there were like 6 pieces on the board, and yet his knight got trapped, and the g3 pawn would have been protected. So a win for Levy Rozman, and he's just running away with this match.
He's got to basically. James has to start winning right now. He has to start winning because the time is going to decide this match. The match time. 13 minutes and ticking down.
Yeah, and I mean, I like what he's doing here. You need to win. You need to win quickly. Let me sacrifice one pawn, sacrifice a second, break open the position, and if you take on f5, bishop g2, whoa. Okay, I guess the d4 pawn was pinned there, so it works out.
Wow, and getting e4 is huge. If white could somehow break with c4, that would shatter the entire pawn structure, shake up things entirely. But look at these pawns, h5, g4, d5, e4. It's so frustrating.
Yeah, the bishop's just locked in there on g2, and you somehow can't get the base pawn, the d5 pawn can't be taken. Oh,
h4, nicely done.
So some kind of knight c5 makes sense to me, but Levy should ignore it. It's like knight c5 just to try to open up the d file and get to the d5 pawn, but
exactly
closing the position down.
I think the knight is trying to go to e3, but a bishop on f4 will make that so hard to do. And he's trying to get c4, but b4 says nope.
It's amazing how Levy's pieces just completely dominate here.
Bishop f4 to g5, knight f6.
Bishop takes e4 is a threat, so don't fall for that. Bishop e4.
6.
Right? So, okay, he stopped it. And this man, but king d6 also worked. No, just take on e3.
Take that was good enough. King d6, a great move as well. Levy's kind of in cruise control at the moment. He's stopping to hydrate a little bit.
Yeah, now the match is completely out of control for James Canty. And, well, I think if you're Levy, you look at the score, it's about to be 5-point lead, only 11 minutes left, and you're the one dominating the bullet portion. You must be thrilled considering how this match looks just 5 games ago.
Exactly. It's a great point. I mean, White's kind of pretending to hold on here, but the position is actually so lost. Like rook c8, I think it's probably good enough.
Yeah, you can't protect your c2 pawn. Rook g3 can happen at any moment as
I
well.
think king e7 was maybe better, but this is solid. Rook g3.
Rook g3, bishop d2, bishop c3 check. White can't move.
Yeah.
Completely frozen.
Bishop e3.
And just he's finding everything now. Just every move just that takes the life out of James's pieces.
I think knight g4 is simple enough. Yeah, I'm just gonna go for that.
Indeed, and the nice trap still.
Oof. h3 is even playable.
Bishop d2 to c3 and h3.
I think h3 rook g1 just wins the knight.
You're right. Oh wait, that was a little blunder there. It looks
a
like
little blunder. Yeah, he's got 3 seconds, but
you got to move.
He's got to move. That's for sure.
Wow, he keeps doing that. And rook e3. Did James somehow survive this?
King c1.
King c1. Yeah. Okay, king
Levy
d2.
That was a big blunder, a series of blunders.
Wow.
c3, get a pass pawn.
Yep.
c4, same idea.
And this should be a draw with best play, but when you're playing bullet, there is no best play. It's just
no, not at all. King is coming to f5 and e4. This is scary.
Wow, whose pawn is going to be better? You give up the d pawn, but you push
b6.
your pawn to b6.
King c5.
King c5.
I like what he did there.
f3 rook d4 check. So you have to watch out for that. And here b6.
Take on d5 even? d6.
Yeah, you can take on d5.
It all works.
Wait, but if you can't allow that queen. If you allow that queen, you're going to check.
Oh, now he's got a rook f5. He's covering him. He's going to at least get a draw here.
And king c7, and that's a draw.
Wow. Whew. So a huge comeback. That game was over, Robert.
That's what happens as commentators when you call a game before it actually concludes. The other results happen, and here we have another wild position with knight to d5. He's giving up a knight because the bishop on d5 is hanging.
Just crazy. Takes knight back to c6, f4. This looks like a position that probably both players wanted from the opening, honestly. Bishop d3.
Kind of looks like black should be pretty happy right now, unless you can get your knight to d4 and bishop to e3. But I was a queen b6 and your bishop is stuck. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Looks like a good move. Takes back and then play b4 again. Now he gets it with bishop e3 though. This could be concerning.
Although f6, right? Standard French type of.
Have to play f6, and he does. Good.
He does, yeah. And that center's collapsing, and the white king's in the center. Take on e5, steal a pawn. Don't mind if you do, right?
Absolutely. Bishop d7. I mean, there were pawns for the taking there.
And some kind of queen h4 comes to mind.
Well, knight takes e5 still was fine.
Yeah.
Bishop on e3 was hanging.
He could take it anyway. And at long last, it's gone.
Okay, so he's just playing rook e1, maybe king h1, bishop f4, something like that from Levy.
Although trading off pieces has to be.
Knight takes e6 and bishop takes b6. Maybe an option, I don't know.
No, but it's bishop e6 and then bishop takes h3. So you just keep the exchanges happening there.
Yeah, there might have been like a bishop c5 at the end of that line, but just wild stuff.
Yeah, too much to calculate.
It's bullet, guys.
Yeah, just take with a pawn.
Take everything. Take
d7,
take b6.
Right, and e5 falls.
But then it's queen b8 if you take a3.
And maybe you should make the diamond structure. Play b5.
Yeah, b5 for sure.
Oh, wait,
pawn.
That's hanging. Yeah, that's not good.
Uh-oh, that is bad. Protected past a pawn here. That might be it. That might be the game right there.
If that pawn can get to a5, ooh, okay, so that's actually
rook b8 doesn't work. Queen takes a3. Queen takes c3.
Maybe rook e6 because you just have to trade off things. But
yep,
this is just good for Levy. Levy, in these critical moments, he just finds a way to like slip away from pressure and then find the counter shots when they're available to him.
Clutch.
Yeah, he has been. And let's see here. If you take on c6, rook takes, and the rook's going to try to go to g6. So he puts his rook on d1, which makes sense.
Looks like a good move.
James is just down to the final seconds.
The problem is he can't trade. I like queen a7, but there's just nothing you can offer after rook d5 here.
Well, you trade and take on a4. And you
rook d5, rook b8, rook b1 check.
That was nasty. Nice find there.
and queen takes. And yeah, Canty doesn't have any hope here because the back rank's covered and Levy can just close his eyes and push those pawns.
Yeah, now it's easy.
1 second ticking down. Like at this point, it is just too clinical for Levy Rozman as he is going to push those 2 pawns up the board and they cannot be stopped.
Nope. And now it is a 5-game lead with just under 6 minutes remaining. The match is Levy's. And, well, we have some fun opening with the bishop's opening and then early d4 just to cause some confusion.
Yeah, we needed maybe more of this in general from him in this match, but it looks like this is going to be Levy's match. There's pretty much no mathematical way that Canty comes back because there's just not enough time on the clock to get those games in.
Right. And we sort of have like an Evans gambit. But
yeah. With an e5, though.
Yeah, this has to be bad. Queen d5 was coming, so that's why he played d5. And queen a4. I don't know how this works, but queen a4 check at some point is going to be painful. Like queen a4.
But you can just go takes on f6, takes on c4, queen trade, take on g7, bishop g5. I'm sure that's also like pretty reasonable.
Looks good. He plays bishop b3, the calm move, which after knight e4, I guess he's going to castle, just like give up all his pawns. Yeah.
We know the vibe here.
Yeah, we know what's happening. And look at this, bishop a3, your typical don't castle, can't get away with that. Take all my pawns. Like your king's stuck in the center. Me too. I'm here for this.
Yeah. 19 seconds ticking down here.
Yeah, now like knight d4, f4, f5 type of stuff. What I would go for.
What we saw at the end of the Alexandra and Greg match in this event was Alexandra got this amazing checkmate in the final bullet game. It's almost like once you know you've won the match, you kind of let your guard down a little bit. Like if you're Levy here, maybe he wouldn't have taken this position if the match was on the line.
Right. You can just play whatever you want because the match is yours. You're moving on to the next round. It's totally true. And queen d3 played. I think Levy completes his development with knight d7. And yeah, this
absolutely.
is
just c4. I mean, e5 hanging, knight g4 coming, bishop back to c7.
Yep. And
yeah, there's going to be knight f3 check, like puzzle rush style.
Yeah, queen h2. Knight f3 now. Takes queen h3.
I'm sure it works. Queen h3?
Oh, this move order hurts too because there's knight f3 check.
Oh, knight f3.
Knight f3, queen h2.
Levy. Oh my goodness, he doesn't see it. Knight f3 would have been beautiful.
Yeah, he's still cruising here.
I mean, he's still winning, yeah, but that was a nice puzzle rush finish. Knight f3 check, uncovering mate on h2.
Isn't that frustrating in puzzle rush when you find a winning tactic, but it's not the most winning, right? Because there was checkmate there. Levy's obviously crushing right now, but he wouldn't have solved it correctly as he didn't get the check.
Yeah, if this was exactly in a puzzle rush competition, no, that wouldn't be good enough.
So what's he up now? Rook and an exchange and 3 pawns.
3 pawns, yeah. Bishop e5, probably the most crucial move in the position. Looking to trade.
Okay, getting tricky, but not tricky enough.
takes h6. Hoping for.
Not so fast. Yeah. So it's 2.5 minutes left. I think we'll get one more game after this one concludes, and Levy just liquidating as he is up 3 pawns in endgame b3, a4, a3.
This will be it. And as you mentioned, 2 minutes left. Probably one more game for these players.
Yeah, and it's interesting because James is clearly flustered. You saw him just kind of be like, nothing's going right for me in the bullet. And the score has just ballooned thanks to this quickest time control. But if you're James, if you're going to lose the match, I think this is absolutely the way you want to lose the match. You don't want to, essentially be crushed in the longer time controls and then make up some points in the bullet. So he should be proud of himself. He should keep his head hanging high because he played a great match. And I think what he'll regret, honestly, is some of these earlier games in the time scrambles. He just wasn't able to work it out, especially the game where Levy found that stalemate and it was a draw rather than a win for James.
Yep. No, that's a great point. And he definitely should be feeling good about this game. Levy also, I mean, who knows what his game plan coming in was, but I'm sure he knew at the back of his mind that, hey, I am a fantastic bullet player. and I can win this match in that time control as long as I stay steady in the blitz. Like he might not be happy with how the blitz went for him, but at the same time, yeah, I'm sure it was a little bit part of his game plan to crush the bullet portion.
Yeah, and we saw really two different Gotham chesses. We saw the early Gotham chess who was struggling against James's tactics, and James really played very well there. And then we got a sort of positional crushing Gotham, where in those two games in the 3-minute portion with the white pieces, he just was kind of in cruise control. He just dominated the board, and James had no chance. And then, of course, he showed his full might here in the bullet and has taken over this match.
Yep, exactly. Here it looks like there's just going to be a knight move into a free piece. I'm trying to see how to get out of that.
Yeah, that's wait. So take on e6 and bishop d5 kind of stuff. But knight g3. You also hit the rook on f1, the queen on.
That's
e2.
why knight f5 was such a good move.
Yeah. And I'm wondering if Levy's just looking at the match clock, seeing there 10 seconds left. He can just resign at some point after the 10 seconds.
Yeah, he wants to make sure that time goes to 0. No sense playing another game, honestly, for either of these players as the match is over.
For sure. And well, what is black up right now? It looks like a lot. It's an exchange.
Yeah, knight f6 looks like the end of the game, followed by d5. C4 is resourceful.
Yeah, it feels like Levy's found so many ideas like that where it looks like the game should just be over, and he plays like c4 just to give himself chances, and that's completely necessary if you're going to win a match like this. Okay, trade queens. This
living on the edge there. Probably you have to take the queen and go a4 as white.
Yeah. And then what's black up exactly? Like an exchange and 2 pawns?
Yeah. And hey, I called it. I mean, if he ends up winning this game, I was just saying that's somehow how these matches tend to end. Is the guy who's going to end up losing the match. Oh, it's funny that he's still winning.
Right, like knight e6 check and queen. You win the rook, but then the c pawn promotes. That's awesome. That's fun. Promoting to a bishop.
That's a classy way to end. That's the comedy we expect from Levy there.
For sure. And for Canty, ending on a win that at least feels better than what had previously happened. We are going to grab the players. They'll join us for post-match interviews. Aman, we're going to have to think of some good questions because that match had us on the edge of our seats.
You said it best, Robert. Full credit to both Levy Rozman for obviously the victory and moving on to the next round, but also to James Canty for a incredibly good performance. And it made this match a lot closer than I think people expected it to be. And I was thoroughly entertained. So I can't wait to talk to these guys in the post-game interview.
For sure. Everybody stay tuned. We'll be right back with both Levy Rozman and James Canty III with their thoughts on what was a fantastic match. We'll be right back. And we return with both of our great players. You, of course, know their faces, but let's hear their thoughts. Let's start with you, Levy. Congrats on winning what was a really fun match. Where did you feel like you found your best form? Because out of the gates, it seemed a little bit shaky for you, and then suddenly you went on a tear down the stretch.
Bullet kind of saved me. It was a very back and forth match. I mean, I didn't expect anything less, honestly. I was doing with some prep this morning, and I was like, all right, Canty and I will fight it out in the blitz, and hopefully I'm within, I'm up 1 or 2, and I didn't even think about the bullet. I also thought the bullet would be close, but then as it got going, I was like, okay, I seem to be making the better decisions like within 1 or 2 seconds. So stressful as hell though, man. That was not fun.
Yeah, that was a stressful match for us watching. I mean, the blitz portion was just topsy-turvy. It seemed like the time scrambles at the end. Levy, you had that one stalemate that Robert and I remember. There was like a king on A1 and Canty's king was running around, and that was just the wildest game for the emotions of the chat and us. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I was very happy from the opening, and then as the game was going on, I was like, what the hell am I doing? I was like jamming to my music. I was like, I'm gonna be up 2, and then he just started kicking my ass, and I was like, what is going on? And then I was gonna resign. I was just gonna resign. And I'm like, you know what? F and H could be a draw, like, or whatever. A and C could be a draw. And then I was like, how do you draw this with like 2 seconds on my clock? And that was the end.
Yeah. And James, on your end, I mean, that must have been really deflating for
mad.
you. Yeah, we saw your reaction. I mean, what was that experience like, and how do you calm yourself because there was so much match left to play?
Well, man, that was tough. I was like, bro, what am I doing? You right? I'm like, but I felt confident and good because I knew I was like, yo, only chance, not chance, but the only time that it's going to be very hard for me is going to be in bullet. I knew that ahead of time. Of course, he's 2,800. I don't play like I'm working on really, I'm really trying to make GM, so I don't play as much bullet as I used to. But at the same time, like I had to be prepped, and I was like, man, Levy's a monster in bullets, so I knew it was going to be a problem there. But how he bounced back is Hikaru said, I remember he had an article a long time ago, or maybe he said it, but he said, you got to have short-term memory loss when it comes to losses or games like that. Like just you cannot think about that going into the next game, or it's going to affect everything. So yeah, that's where I was. I was like, yep, just shake it off, keep moving, next game.
Oh, I certainly didn't do that. There was that game where I was winning in the end game, the game that went like 40 moves longer than it had to. Because I didn't know how much time I had. Like for the first time in my life, I'm looking at the board. I don't know how much time I have because I think I have like 1 second. So I just keep moving. I hang a knight and then you don't take it. And then I'm just like, I just got to move. And then finally I look, I have 3 seconds. It's crazy. Like playing on stream, you're just like talking to chat, like drinking. Thank you for the prime. You got 2 seconds on the clock. And then like here, it's just like, like it's insane, man.
Well, you're mentioning of stream, and of course, you both are very popular. You had many fans throughout the match rooting you both on. So let me ask you, let's start with you, Levy. What's the difference for you? Because you do play in Title Tuesdays and things like that, but what's the difference between that and the match you just played and just this tournament more generally?
I think I have the same experience today that I did the last time that I played this thing. I honestly, like, my nerves are like sky high. I might have to take a shot of something before I play next time. It's crazy. I haven't played a meaningful chess game in like 2 years, 3 years. How long has it been? So I like get amped up for this, but when I'm sitting here, I'm like, you just go. I mean, you see it like with the time spent. 5+1. I think in 5+1, my level of play goes down 33% at least. It's a weird format.
I believe that actually. And Bullet, it was much stronger. I was like, where did this come? And he was also fast and accurate. He was getting time trouble, but I was like, man, he's gonna be a monster in Bullet. And that's exactly what happened. I was like, man, I just want to get a few games, bro, like make it close because I knew this is going to be tough for me. I'm not even playing as much Bullet. Demand 2,800. Okay, that's nasty in Bullet. So I was like, yeah, I knew this is gonna be tough. That 1 second increment definitely saved me, but it still wasn't enough time. It still wasn't enough time, bro. But it was, congrats, bro. It was great, and I felt great about the match, but could have did better in Bullet.
Yeah, the Bullet portion was entertaining. I know Robert and I both saw pretty much at the beginning of the Bullet portion. I think Levy was like on camera looking shocked when you played Knight F6, Bishop G5, Knight back to G8, and we're all wondering, was that a mouse slip? Like, what was up there?
That was not a mouse slip, big fella. That was definitely something that I play a lot, actually, because it just throws people off, especially in Bullet, Knight G8, and we great. Hit H6, G5, Bishop G7, D6, Knight D75, C5, go for a queenside attack. It's more like a Black Lions. Shout out to Simon Williams on that. And a L-shot system, if you guys are familiar with that. But sort of a combination of both, where you get this swashbuckling, ridiculous-looking game, especially in bullet chess, is something nice.
Yeah, James, you really caught us off guard with that one.
Yeah.
Glad to know that was planned, and that was fun. And people in the chat were mentioning before, and I guess I have to ask both of you. I guess there's breaking news that James Harden was traded to the Nets. Levy, you're a Brooklyn guy. How are you feeling about that?
Shocked and wow, I'm kind of pissed off actually. I didn't want James Harden. I didn't want James Harden. I don't know. Oh my God. Wow. He got to lose that weight. That's what I can say. He got to lose that weight. I mean, so do I, but so does he. Robert, how do you feel about that? Better question.
Oh, I'm the one who asked the questions. I don't have to answer them right now. See,
you're not happy.
I need to wrap my head around all of it.
The last thing that we needed in Brooklyn was the top 3 most dramatic players in the league. Let's be serious. Oh my God.
Well, guys, it was an awesome match, and really thank you so much to both of you, and congrats to you, Levy, for finally taking it, and for James, you put up a great fight. You were a worthy competitor, and we look forward to more streams of yours in the near future.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, congrats, Levy.
And as you see, the bracket fills out a little bit more. Our third match has come to its conclusion. Levy Rozman, the 4 seed, moves on. He awaits the winner of Eric Rosen and Sagar Shah. What do you make of that matchup in the 5-12? Because if you're a college basketball fan, that's normally where upsets happen.
Yeah, 5th seed versus 12th seed. I think that one of the sort of dark horses, or one of the people that I think the audience might know the least about in this tournament might be Sagar Shah. I mean, you and I probably quite familiar with him, but I think that people will be more familiar with Eric Rosen, like very popular on his streams and such. And he's obviously the favorite going in. But I think if this match was any indicator, Robert, it's like, what does a favorite really mean in this format? It's about who shows up on game day, because James Canty came in. He was only down a single game, and he was leading at many points in this match. He's only down a single game before the bullet. So I think it's going to be a very exciting match. Just like today, Rosen is the favorite, but anything can happen.
Yeah, another matchup of fabulous content creators. Sagar Shah, also a very strong player, and many people, especially on Twitch, may not be as familiar, but if you're on YouTube, you should look up his stuff. Great content, and he may be the most popular person in this match, because when he is streaming, when the Indian players are playing, the audience grows and grows. So it will be interesting to see how he fares over the board and not in his role as commentator. But Aman, it's been fun. We will have another match tomorrow between Alessio Santaramo and Roberto Molina. I think we know who the heavy favorite is in that one. Roberto is the 2 seed. Alessio will have her hands full, but any chance for the 15 seed?
I think I've learned my lesson, in these matches where, for example, Levy, the 4th seed, James Canty the 3rd, number 13. And how close was this match to start off? There are many points where Canty was leading. I've learned to not put my money anywhere near matches like this, because the incredible things can happen. So I'm not counting anyone out. And even in some of the matches like Danny versus Lawrence, which ended up in a lopsided score, it was still a very entertaining match. So it's well worth your time to tune in.
Certainly. And many more fun chess events coming our way. There's the Arena Kings as starting on Monday, and the second Arena Kings will be Friday. Of course, we will have Pod Champs 3. Everyone should be really excited about that. That is starting next month. The biggest names in the streaming world, VTubers like Code Miko, and of course the celebrities abound, including some from non-streaming platforms like Rainn Wilson of The Office and Daniel Negreanu, the poker legend. Aman, it's been a great time covering these matches with you. I had a blast today, and we just were in for a show. That was a treat.
Yeah, and the time just disappeared. It always happens during these matches. You never see the time taken away, and at the end, that was like a full cinematic experience. I was here for it all. Commentary with you. We had the chat. Tons of fans and supporters for both sides. We appreciate the memes, the spam, you guys enjoying it, and just a lot of fun commentating and thoroughly entertained.
For sure. And there is another match tomorrow. It starts 3 hours earlier, so if you're tuning into this, set your clocks, because you will not want to miss that. Aman, thank you again. Thanks to our producers. Thanks to everybody who's joined us throughout all the chats and throughout all the action. We really appreciate you. But for now, we're going to sign off. Enjoy the rest of your day and keep having fun with chess.
Take care.